Good evening and welcome to the public hearing of council pertaining to municipal reserve disposition being held June 16th, 2021, and we're beginning at 7:01 p.m. This public hearing is held pursuant to the Municipal Government Act, RSA 2000, Chapter M-26, and amendments thereto. I hereby declare the public hearing relating to municipal reserve disposal of Block 8 Municipal Reserve Plan 941-1772 now open at 7:01 p.m. Can we have a motion to adopt the public hearing agenda? Councillor Montgomery makes that motion. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Oh,
Aye.
Aye, okay, thank you. Legislative Services?
Thank you, Your Worship. Administration is bringing forward a request to dispose of 0.378 hectares of municipal reserve from parcel block 8MR Plan 941-1772 to facilitate the registration of 2 subdivisions conditionally approved in the spring of 2021. Public hearing for municipal reserve disposal was advertised in the Strathmore Times on May 28th and June the 4th, 2021. A sign was also posted at the northern end of the parcel on May 27th and remained in place until June 10th, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. The following rules of conduct will be followed during the public hearing. Presentations should be brief and to the point and shall be limited to 3 minutes in length. The order of presentation shall be the administration, those in favor of the bylaw, those opposed to the bylaw, any other person deemed to be affected by the bylaw. Council may ask questions of the speakers after each presentation for clarification purposes. To date, no letters of support and none opposed have been received. Does the administration have any comments? Good evening, Megan.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. I will just do a quick outline of the proposal here. So as stated, 2 subdivisions were conditionally approved in spring of this year. They're intended to clean up the fragmented parcels of lands within Kinsman Park and to create a new titled parcel for Town Hall. For those at home, the map on page 191 of council's package shows you where the subject parcel and where the proposed MR disposal area is. So the first subdivision is 20S-003. It's the new Town Hall subdivision. It was designed to include the driveway, parking lot, and Town Hall on a single lot. The portion of MR disposal totals 0.207 hectares and contains trees, pathways, and the gazebo. There's currently no development proposals or changes to the existing development on this part of the MR parcel. The second subdivision is to the south, 20S-004. It was designed to accommodate the placement of the cabanas behind the Strathmore Fire Hall. This portion of the MR disposal totals 0.171 hectares. It does contain a grassed area and a driveway, and though the placement of the cabanas has been on hold, there's no immediate impact to the access or use of Kinsman Park. I did notice the other day that there are some bleachers behind the ball diamonds there, so that will have to be addressed at the DP stage, just because some folks were parked along the side there. That was it. We did receive 2 inquiries for more information regarding the MR disposal, and we did receive no other comments or concerns. In total, we are requesting the disposal of 0.378 hectares of municipal reserve. And so administration is recommending that council take into consideration all information received during this public hearing. And that does conclude my presentation. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Are there any questions from councillors?
I just have one, Your Worship.
Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just a confirmation, Megan, when you said that the grandstands would have to move, or is it the parking behind the grandstands? The bleachers.
Just the parking. So what's...
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from councillors? Thank you, Megan. Seeing no questions, is there anyone present who supports the disposition who wishes to speak? Is there anyone present who opposes the disposition who wishes to speak? Is there anyone present deemed to be affected by the disposition who wishes to speak? Do the councillors at home have any further questions or any other questions?
No, Your Worship.
Councillor Cox?
No, I have nothing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I hereby declare this public hearing for the disposition of Municipal Reserve Block 8MR, Plan 9411772 closed at 7:08 p.m. and will accept a motion to adjourn. Councillor Corbeil makes the motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And we are adjourned. The public hearing is adjourned. Thank you. At this time, we go back to the regular public meeting. And at this time, I'm on number 2 of the agenda, confirmation of agenda. Are there any emergent items from any of the councillors? Councillor Corbeil?
Thank you. I would like to add just something quick in between, questions between councillors and council statements, please.
Okay, thank you. So that would be 14.1. Councillor Sobel?
And I also have something under 14.1, or 14, Your Worship, so 14.2.
Thank you. Anything else from councillors? Anything from administration?
Thank you, Your Worship. Administration would like to remove 2 items from the agenda. The first one is item 9.1, the employee handbook, and the second one is item 9.2, the 2021 seniors tax rebate program.
Thank you for that, Deborah. So at this time, I'd like to confirm the agenda as amended. And we're looking for a motion. Councillor Sobel makes that motion.
I do, Your Worship. I move the adoption of the agenda as amended.
Thank you for that motion, and I'll call the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Councillor Cox, and that motion is carried. Now we're on number 3 in camera, and I believe Mr. Legore from administration has a quick comment on something related to that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we basically have no in-camera session tonight. I would like to just have council's indulgence for about a 1-minute update after the meeting is over with, please. Just some latest information. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Legore. We have no presentations or recognitions, and that brings us to item 5, delegations. 5.1, Strathmore High School. Mr. Cole Hintz is here with us tonight. Welcome, Cole. And I'm sure you've been in contact with our legislative services to let you know that you have a 10-minute presentation time, as we have a fairly long agenda tonight. But there could be questions and comments from councillors after your presentation. So we welcome you tonight. We've received your package and have read through and looked at it. So we're looking forward to hear you tonight, and welcome again.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. The purpose of me presenting tonight is to kind of share this idea, because I feel like we've gotten to this stage where it's going to affect the community in a positive way. And also, and so I wanted to share that. And then also to ask for a letter of support that we could potentially use for applying for grants in the next little bit. So just a bit of a background, we've been fairly successful this year in accessing funds to grow a lot of the learning opportunities that we have in the halls of our school. And we're really excited for next year for some of the hydroponics and aquaponics stuff that students within Strathmore or within the division are going to be able to kind of visit our school and participate in some of these things that are going on in our school. And as we kind of engaged in that a bit with the students and saw how powerful that experience was, we definitely tried to think of ways where, how can we incorporate the community in what we're doing? Because this is a great community and there's a ton of expertise kind of around us. And so that's kind of shifting to the next phase, which is this geodesic community greenhouse that we want to put on school grounds. It's a passive solar greenhouse. There's pictures in your package of kind of what the design looks like. Some students have kind of, they've helped with mocking up kind of what it would look like in the space. The plan for that area is that it will be like a community greenhouse where, in thinking about the space, we kind of picture like different community groups having access to different growing areas and kind of using that space to kind of to follow whatever it is that they want, and then being able to learn from each other side by side. We picture like maybe like a group like the Girl Guides or the Boy Scouts running a micro business in one grow area. Maybe another group is using that area to support the overnight shelter. We feel like this could be a really powerful place for all of these groups to come together. And we also, our goal is to run it off-grid year-round so that we can continue to give courses. Communities in Bloom or some of these other community groups could give courses to community members kind of within that space. But we just wanted to kind of present this to you because it is, in our mind, it is a community project. We would appreciate a letter of support. We have been fairly successful accessing funding to date. We're almost like 80% funded with kind of what our end goal is. And that's kind of partially moved up some of our timelines. Like we've been very successful where we're kind of, the idea will be in September to give it to the students, and the students will be engaging these community groups and thinking about, okay, what can we do with this space moving forward? And how can we make this kind of one of the things that Strathmore is potentially known for? So yeah, I'm willing to answer any questions that you guys have.
Thank you for that presentation, and I appreciated the drawings and the photographs as well. It really gives us an idea of what you folks are planning. Councillor Montgomery, followed by Councillor Corbeil, and then Sobel.
Thank you. And I have a motion ready if you'd like me to do that right now. And I have a question as well.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, we'll do questions first, if that's okay, and then I'll come back to you for a motion.
Sure. So my question, and thank you very much for coming and presenting this. My question is, how does it operate in the winter, like off-grid? I kind of I was curious about that.
Yeah, so off-grid in the winter it's really like the pinnacle of like greenhouse and what people try to get to, and it's very difficult to do. It does use a passive solar technology where it takes kind of the warm air and during the day it pumps it down into the soil, into the thermal mass, and stores it there. And then at night it reverses flow or in cooler times, and then it can pull some of that out. In our weeks of like -35, that will be like a little bit more difficult. But that's kind of part of the exciting part about the project is like we kind of picture like our students trying to figure out this problem with like communities in Bloom, other members of the community who kind of have expertise with this, and it kind of being like a community undertaking, like, okay, how are we going to make this work? We need to add thermal mass, or what are some of these things that we need to do in order to kind of be more successful?
Yeah, thank you very much for explaining that. And yeah, I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Corbeil, followed by Councillor Sobel.
Thank you, Worship. I really appreciate these kinds of ventures and stuff with the students, and then, you know, inviting outside of them, like within the community, and, you know, really, I wouldn't even just say bonding, but just a totally new learning experience for everyone and everything involved. And I just think it's an amazing forward thinking thing to do. And thank you very much for including us. I will absolutely support this.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. Councillor Sobel.
Thank you, Your Worship. And Mr. Hintz, I just really appreciate this. I think there's everything that you talked about is just an amazing project, right? From who's doing it to community involvement and the goals that you guys are setting for yourself. So my only question was, I just want to clarify this. Did you say you were 80% funded already?
Yeah, There has been a lot of excitement, and we have been fairly successful accessing funding from a lot of private organizations to date, and so they've been very helpful. So yeah, we've definitely kind of accelerated our timeline. We thought it would be more like a 2-year kind of long-term project, but it's looking like it's more of a March 2022 type thing.
Just amazing. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. So great. I also, like Councillor Corbill, support this and would definitely sign the letter. Very proud of you and your students for achieving 80% so far, and look forward to seeing it, and put it out there if you need any more help with anything else.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Are there any other questions? Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I really appreciate this, and I have a great interest in it, mainly because what do I need to do? Use the other mic. Use this mic? Yeah. All right. Thank you. Sorry about that. So I have a great interest in this, and for about 6 years we've been having discussions with developers about putting in condominiumized greenhouses, year-round greenhouses in developments, so that people could access this, and we definitely believe that it'll be the way of the future. And one of the other things, when you in your very detailed report to council, you talked about looking at joint initiatives into the future, and Old Sun Community College has just partnered with Lethbridge University on building a very large greenhouse project, and I know they'd be really interested in this as well. And certainly the Scots Canada had just sponsored the overnight shelter to build a greenhouse, and so that's been very, very successful, and so partnering in that would be very interested as well. And in terms of funding, when you talk about extended funding and sustainability into the future, when you are talking about including seniors, the New Horizons grant is something that would be very much available to you. And if there's any way that any of those groups could assist in terms of letters of support, whether it's Seniors Advisory or the overnight shelter, I know they would be more than happy also to offer letters of support if that would aid the cause, a very worthwhile cause that you're undertaking. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. I'll go back to Councillor Montgomery for your motion.
Yes, with great pleasure. I would like to move that council provide a letter of support for the Strathmore High School Community Greenhouse Project.
Thank you. And with that motion on the floor, if there's any further discussion, Cole, I just want to echo my fellow councillors and just tell you how proud I am of Strathmore High and of you for bringing forward this project. I think it's a great way to bring different cultures together, different age groups, different service groups. I think it's just going to be an amazing thing. So very much appreciative and very proud of Strathmore High for this. So at this time, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
And the motion is carried. Thank you, Cole, for your presentation tonight, and administration will be putting together that letter. And just a quick question, is there a timeline? I'm not sure if I saw that. Is there a time frame you need the letter?
No, at the earliest convenience, that's fine.
Okay, we'll be on it
We can.
quickly. Thank you very much again for coming tonight. Say hi to the staff.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that brings us to item 6. We have nothing on the consent agenda. Item 7, confirmation of minutes. 7.1, the adoption of the June 2nd, 2021 regular council meeting minutes.
I would so move, Your Worship.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt those minutes, and I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
And the motion is carried. We have no tabled items. That brings us to item 9, items and or reports from administration. 9.3, Aquatic and Family Center Roof Replacement Funding Shortfall, page 98 of your agenda package. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. I'm here to speak to a redirection of funds to address a funding shortfall as a part of the Aquatic Center and Family Center roof replacements. In September 2020, administration submitted a proposal to the Government of Alberta Municipal Stimulus Program to support the roof replacements for both the Aquatic and Family Center. Building assessments that were completed in 2019 identified these projects as near the end of life. As a part of this tendering process, administration engaged William Engineering to assist in the roof assessments and provide recommendations on replacement options and pricing. Due to the timing of the grant to the MSP program and the tendering process, we've identified a potential shortfall of about $585,000. This is in light of increased construction costs that have hit the marketplace from November of 2020 to April of 2021. In an attempt to secure additional funding through the Infrastructure Canada's grant and Inclusive Communities building, we've identified this as a potential source of grant funding. But in the event that this project is or our application for this project or for this grant is unsuccessful, we would like to redirect funds from the federal gas tax towards covering off this budget shortfall. If there's anything that council or your worship has, I can address any questions at this time.
Thank you. I have two really quick questions. That federal gas tax monies, that would be for 2021?
That is correct.
And it's not earmarked for anything else?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Councillor Corbeil? Councillor Corbeil, is your hand up?
Thank you, Your Worship. How long will it take us? I have a quick question. Thank you, Your Worship. When will we know about these grants? Like, when are they due and how long will it take to hear back?
Through the chair, working right now with the Infrastructures Department on the application itself. We don't have a timeline as of to when we're going to hear about this, whether our application is going to be successful. But the comments I've heard is that they feel that this project could meet the needs for the grant. So I wouldn't say optimistic, but we believe it's identified in the goals of this grant.
Thank you. I understand. I've seen those roofs leak, so I understand the need. It's something that we really can't push off without doing more damage to everything else. And last thing I want to say is congratulations, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. Councillor Sobel?
Thank you, and thank you, Mark, for bringing this forward. So just to clarify, it was Williams that did the initial inspection and then did a more in-depth quote after the grant application went in. Have I got that right?
Yes, through the chair, Council Sobel, we commissioned Williams Engineering to do a building assessment on all municipal buildings in 2019. At that time, we used that information to populate our capital projects list. And at that time, the roof replacements for both the Aquatic Center and the Family Center were identified. With the opportunity to apply for through provincial money, we fast-tracked these projects and obviously were approved from the provincial government.
Thank you. And I mean, I can't help but comment on the amount of the increase. We're dealing with big dollars here. The Family Center went up from, if my calculations are correct, 1.1 million to 1.5, and I'm sorry, that was the Aquatic Center, the Aquatic Center went up from 265 to 465, just about doubling, and the Family Center from 110 to 1.1 to 1.5, and this is, if I understand you correctly, this is strictly on material focus?
Through the chair, I should stress that these are estimates produced by Williams Engineering through their contractor. There is a chance that through the tendering process that we could see more competitive bids and we could see a lower cost. This is just the estimate that we were given from Williams Engineering to fast track or to understand the budget implications for this project.
And my very last question, did they explain why there was such a difference in their two quotes?
Through the chair, we, in order to apply for the provincial money, we were required to supply some estimates. So we quickly scrambled to get that information, and those were the quotes that we were provided for in November or in the fall of 2020. Obviously, nobody foresaw these increased construction costs, and hopefully, like I said, through the tendering process, we could see some reduced numbers.
We can only hope. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Mark, do we expect or are we in the midst of any interior repairs on walls because of that leaking roof this year?
Through the chair, your worship, we hope that any leaks or any water issues will be identified through the roofs, and any damage inside. We don't really have a lot of damage. Fortunately, those buildings are concrete bunkers. It will just require some cleaning and some painting once the water issues are addressed.
Okay, thank you. And maybe I missed it. I was really impressed. The photos really tell the tale on the roofs of both those buildings. Is there a timeline when you would start the roof repair or the roof replacement?
Once, through the chair, once we've identified ensure that our funding, our budgets are secure, we're prepared with Williams Engineering to go to tender probably within the next week or two. This is just the last step, and to ensure once we got our budgets numbers, and then from there, our goal is to minimize operations, and we can keep the buildings operational while we're doing this work.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Montgomery, then Councillor Cox.
Thank you. I believe Councillor Cox was ahead if she wants to go.
It's all fine, Councillor Montgomery. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to say, I get kind of leery about the idea of using Williams Engineering after they've already, kind of, set us off to such a bad start. So is it necessary that we go through Williams Engineering to do this? Can't we, is there another way to put this out to tender?
Through the chair, Councillor Montgomery, it's our intention to do the tender ourselves. So we just engaged Williams Engineering to get a better idea of the scope of the project. Records and building information for these buildings that were built 20 and 30 years ago is quite limited. And so as a result, we engaged the company, St. Williams, who did the initial building assessments, only to help us draft the RFP and to help us confirm funding. So again, the intention is for us to manage this project and manage the tendering process after that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just clarify for me, if you would, Mark, are you actually looking for us to give you a certain dollar value in this motion, or are we approving just the shortfall from the grants to what you're lacking?
Through the chair, Councillor Cox, we're hoping that the grant that will be successful and there won't be any budget shortfalls. But in the event that there is, we're hoping that the $585,000 will cover the missing 30% of the funding for both roof replacements.
Okay, so you're asking for the exact number of $585,000, and that's the max.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So is any councillor prepared to make a motion?
I just have a
Oh,
quick
Councillor
question.
Peterson.
Thank you, Mark. I was wondering if when Williams did they look at weight bearing, about how our roof is handling weight bearing loads at this point?
Through the chair, I don't think that was really addressed in terms of the roof assessments. Really, the question was about how can we get this.
It was just stopping the leaks.
We're just addressing the roof replacements. The building assessments at that time in 2019 did not identify any roof issues. but they weren't an in-depth building assessment. It was mostly just an overall scope of where the situation for each building.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Peterson?
Your worship, I would move that council approve additional funding for the Aquatic and Family Centre roof replacements in the amount of $585,000 to be taken from the federal gas tax in the event that the application for the green and inclusive community buildings is unsuccessful.
Thank you for the motion. You've all heard the motion, and it's on the floor. I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
And the motion is carried. Thank you, Mark, for your presentation and your being willing and able to answer those questions so well. Thank you. We move on to 9.4, a Strathmore vaccination campaign, which is on page 185. Mr. Jeff Person is with us tonight.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'm here tonight to talk about a Made in Strathmore vaccination campaign. When we submitted this for Council's perusal, it was before the province had made the announcement about their massive $1 million prize. But even in the days since they've announced that, I think that, or I hope that you'll see that what we've got here is something that actually ties into that quite nicely. When we approached this and when we started thinking about a vaccination campaign, we wanted to provide a meaningful prize, obviously, to people as an incentive, but we also wanted to answer the question of how can we memorialize what we've gone through as a community over the past year. And so that's where we came up with the idea of a grand prize for this, that's the name of one person who has received their vaccination and who enters this incentive contest would have a pond, one of Strathmore's ponds named after them. I think that it's a really interesting, unique, and fitting prize that would be awarded. Partly because it does answer that question of how are we going to memorialize this? And I think that COVID-19 has been different from a lot of the challenges that Strathmore has gone through. It's something that's really required the community to pull together. And even right now in this vaccination campaign, the best way to protect our community is for everybody to receive a vaccination. So therefore, pulling the name of one of these community heroes who has gotten their vaccine and memorializing them as sort of the face of how we've protected our community is, I think in the words of like the MasterCard campaign there, that's priceless. So how do we exceed $1 million prize? We find something else that's even more meaningful. So I think that it's a very short report, but it does highlight like a very minimal cost to the town in terms of finances. It's $1,800. We've dovetailed in with regular bi-weekly prizes throughout the summer that tie into supporting local business. And I'm really happy with this. Even though the province has moved ahead with their own incentive campaign, I still hope that council supports this.
Thank you. I was especially intrigued by the local loot. I think that's a great way to support our businesses too and to get everybody charged up about our community. So I like that. I like the pond idea. It's very interesting. We just have to make sure that nobody submits some bogus dumb name, like Stephen Colbert got his fans on the old comedy channel, the Colbert Report, to name a bridge in Hungary after him. And he got so many people writing in to vote in that city that he got the bridge named after him. And that was all for a laugh, I guess. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Jeff, for this. I just wondered if you have some statistics for me. Are you able to tell me the current rate of vaccination in Strathmore and how it stacks up against the province?
Thank you very much, Councillor. I haven't checked since last week. When we submitted the report, we were just slightly below the provincial average, but within a very healthy margin of error. So I think that we're still on track with the rest of the province. We are over 50%, but I haven't been able to check since then. Sorry.
So we don't have extremely low immunization rates in Strathmore then.
That's correct, Councillor.
And I'm just wondering, did this idea come from administration or did it come from the community, or like where was this, how did this idea come to fruition?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it came from administration. Thank you.
Okay, so it looks like you're proposing that we spend about $1,800 and all the money will be from spent in the community for this particular initiative.
Through the chair, Your Worship, thank you very much, Councillor Bauer. That's correct.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Corbeil?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you very much for your report, Jeff. My only concern is with this whole pandemic is it's always been said that like we're in this together. So idolizing one person for getting their vaccination, I'm having a hard time with. I am all for the draws. I'm fine with that, you know, for I guess a little thank you for who has done it, and you're still giving the choice, but I don't know. That's the only thing that really stuck out to me is when you're giving one person and idolizing them. That was just making it hard for me when we've all been in this pandemic for the last 18 months. But that's just my 2 cents. I agree with everything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. Councillor Montgomery?
Thank you. What is the process? What's the process for signing up for this?
Thank you very much, Councillor. It'd be almost identical to the provinces. It's the same sort of online submission form. The one addition that we're looking at that since the province announced theirs, there's been a little bit of questions around how non-vaccinated people are still able to enter the incentive process without getting the vaccination yet. And for us, I think that what we'd be looking at is that would also potentially address what Councillor Corbeil is asking, is that basically it would be like a role. So so that as people enter, that their name will be on the website for people to see, so that you're able to see your own name up there. But it's also a little bit of community profile, so that if somebody who is a strong opponent to vaccinations, let's say, or who has said that they don't want to get the vaccination, if they enter this contest, their name would already be up there. So it's a way of I guess, providing a public check and balance, but at the same time, a little bit of an improvement on the process from the province. Does that answer your question, Councillor?
Yeah, sort of. And so this is strictly for people that get the vaccination? Or this could be for anyone?
In order to enter the draw, you would have to have received at least one dose of the vaccine.
Okay. Like I'm just concerned about, like, you know, there's people that are medically unable to get vaccines, due to like compromised health, and other issues like that. And I just I feel like we're excluding people based on based on possible health issues, and I have concerns, I guess, that this isn't it's not like a level playing field, I guess, from that perspective.
I think one of the we can take a look at a solution to that. However, I think that one of the most important parts of this is that by encouraging higher immunization rates across the entire community, those people who aren't able to receive a vaccine are actually, that's how they're protected. So the most important thing that the rest of the community can do to support those individuals who can't receive a vaccine is to actually get the vaccine themselves. So I think that I would hope that they would see that that's a counterbalance to a concern like that.
Let's see. Yeah, and I guess one other concern I have is just that, as Councillor Corbeil said, we've all been in this every single one of us has been in this for the last, however long, 18 months or 14 months. And I personally, I don't feel comfortable excluding certain people based on, this is kind of a private health issue to me, and I don't feel it's the place of a municipal government, especially, to create prizes or to offer prizes for people that are I guess for me it's I don't really like the idea of excluding certain people based on their ability or willingness to get a vaccine. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Worship. I am very grateful for this initiative and to administration, and I know that that our mayor had mused about it as well, and I think helping our provincial government move that needle so that we can open up faster, that if all communities undertook such an initiative, we would definitely make that faster and more efficient, and help our province to open up earlier, we would encourage our businesses to be more viable more quickly. And I know that of at least one business person who is immunocompromised who's watching this tonight, who would be exceedingly grateful if all the people around them had their immunizations. And in terms of not being inclusive in terms of a name, I think that there are many things that we do that acknowledge this. And if we were to call this the Pat Fuel Pond, we could also call it, underneath, the 2021 Pandemic Recovery Pond. And so I think that there's a way to utilize it as a contest, but also be inclusive from a community perspective. There are just many advantages to this, and I really appreciate the way administration has rolled it out, especially in terms of utilizing the small amount of funding that we'd put forward to supporting our local businesses. I think that it's our local businesses have suffered, so many of them have suffered terribly, and they have communicated to me, and I know to other council members, that they know that this council is limited in what we can do to assist, but one of the things that has meant a great deal to them is the small steps that we've taken to at least show that we recognize that times have been very, very difficult. I think this is one of those things. I'm very much in favor of this initiative, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. And while I appreciate you thinking of my name on that pond, I'd just like to point out I can't swim and I'm scared of water. Even this glass of water gives me the shakes. Councillor Cox, followed by Councillor Sobel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a couple questions. I don't know enough. I'm not a doctor, and I know you guys are not either. But if you've had COVID, do you still get the shot?
Through the chair.
Yes?
Yes, definitely, Councillor Cox. Whether you've had COVID or not, you should still be vaccinated.
Okay. And then my next question for you is, how are you going to decipher whether or not it is a town of Strathmore person? Are you going to make them show a tax bill, or do they have to own in Strathmore? Can they rent in Strathmore? You're walking, box number in Strathmore, does that count? Just looking for a little clarification.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, they'll have to show proof that they live within the town of Strathmore. This is a town of Strathmore initiative.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Sobel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I like this idea, and I think it's very much in the wheelhouse of council's responsibility to encourage safe and healthy neighborhoods and community. In fact, that's one of our jobs, as outlined in the Municipal Government Act. We've lost 19 of our residents in our community as a result of COVID. And we're down to 2 cases right now, 2 active cases, which is phenomenal from where we've come from not so long ago. I hope it's accepted and clear to everyone that this came as a result of the vaccinations that we've all been a part of, and also the other ways we fought this through masking and washing your hands and social distancing and following the rules, etc. So I'm proud of our community. I think we've done a really good job, and I'm hoping and I suspect that this will be the case, that whoever, if this is accepted and passed tonight, whoever wins the ability to put their name on a pond, that person will be representative of everyone who's done so much to get us to where we are now. I don't think it's a matter that, this will be the representative of everyone, and I think it's a fitting way to do it. And I appreciate this coming to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Corbeil? Maybe we should
Thank
put a
you.
motion.
I just have one more comment.
I think
I would be a little bit better with this if.
Councillor Corbeil, sorry to interrupt, but I think as far as our discussion, I am remiss in not having us put a motion on the floor so we can have discussion. Councillor Montgomery?
Thank you. I will move the council approve a Strathmore vaccination campaign for summer 2021, and that it be open to all residents who would like to sign up, and that list not be posted on the website.
So you're opening it up to, your motion has it open to up to everyone in Strathmore?
Any Strathmore residents, and I don't think it's appropriate to post the list of people's names. That might make people uncomfortable.
Okay, I understand. I was just getting clarification on your motion. Councillor Corbeil, discussion?
I do. I have one quick comment. I would be a little bit easier with the naming of the pond if we could do a plaque with the 19 people from our community that have died. I'm not sure if that's possible or if that would be an idea, but I would be a little bit better with that moving forward if that could be included.
Mr. Person?
Thank you, Worship. And thank you very much, Councillor. That's definitely something that we can include in this. I think that this is exactly the kind of guidance that we're looking for from Council. So, and especially given that this is about how we're memorializing what we've gone through as a community, that's entirely something that we can include in this.
Thank you. Councillor Cox?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just looking for a little bit of clarification. So Councillor Montgomery's motion includes every single person or only those vaccinated?
It's every single person in Strathmore, I believe.
Anybody that wants to sign up.
So you don't have to have been vaccinated?
That's what his motion reads. Mr. Legore?
To you, Mr. Mayor, I think the motion needs to be clear if that's intent, because it's still a vaccination campaign that, according to the terms that Mr. Pearson has presented to you, to enter it, you have to still have a vaccination. The way I understood Councillor Montgomery's motion, that it's open to all residents of Strathmore. You've got your vaccination, you can enter. There's no intention ever of posting the names on any website or anything through social media as to who's entered. That is not the intent. It's trying to encourage people to get vaccinated and support our local business community in recovery. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So if people are confused, Councillor Montgomery's motion does say all persons in Strathmore, so there would be no exclusion if you weren't vaccinated, which if you feel goes against the vaccination campaign, then that would affect the way you vote. My only question for Councillor Montgomery is, you could, with your motion, you could have a person who enters and is drawn for the pond who is a staunch anti-vaccination person, and how does that support the vaccination campaign, and what would that do to the naming of the pond being in recognition of the vaccination numbers of the town?
I think that if somebody's going to get vaccinated as a result of any sort of enticements, they're going to get, vaccinated for the $1 million or for any number of, lotto prizes that the province is winning. If somebody is only going to get vaccinated simply because they want to possibly get a pond named after them, I don't think that's a very good strategy or a good way to kind of manage their health. As I said, I think we need to be recognizing that there's been major sacrifices made by all residents of Strathmore, and we need to recognize that. This isn't something where we only say, okay, well, just the people that have jumped through this last final hoop, you've been jumping through hoops for the past 18 months, and but there's one more, and if you don't jump through that, then all your sacrifice counts for nothing. And I really, really, really like Councillor Corbill's idea about a plaque at the pond. I think that's an excellent idea, and I hope that's included as part of this.
The only thing I would say, Councillor Montgomery, is that this was a Strathmore vaccination campaign, and your motion totally went against that. You kind of disregarded the whole campaign that they planned, and you've put a motion that goes against the vaccination campaign. So, councillors, you're going to have to decide at home if you support that as far as your vote goes.
Point of order, Your Worship?
Yes?
I don't know, so I'm just asking the question. But normally, this would be, I think, considered out of order. But I would have to ask administration. I'm not certain. But I think when a motion is contrary to the intent, it sometimes or often is ruled out of order. So I would ask for direction. I'm okay to take the vote.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it might be out of order.
I would appreciate some direction as well. Mr. Legore?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, really it's changing the intent of the program, and the motion probably is out of order. If the intent of council is that they don't want to go with a vaccination campaign, you just want to go with COVID recognition, then you should either defeat this or refer it back to administration and tell us to develop a COVID recognition program, which would be completely different than what we're talking about here. They're two completely separate things. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So you're saying basically we have the option. We could rule it out of order. I could rule it out of order, or we could vote on it. But it does go against the intent of the actual program and the campaign.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the motion should be ruled out of order. And if you're not in support of the vaccination campaign, then you should defeat the motion.
Okay, thank you. I will rule the motion from Councillor Montgomery as out of order because it does go against the presented vaccination campaign that administration had worked on and presented and brought forward to us.
Your Worship, I hate to do this, but I'll move to challenge the ruling of the mayor, please.
Your Worship, may I have a quick suggestion?
Councillor Corbill?
My suggestion would be to open up the draws for everyone, but the naming of the pond be a vaccinated person. It's a little bit of a compromise. It's still keeping up with the sort of campaign. It's still, supporting local businesses.
I'm not sure how the rest of council feels with that compromise. It is definitely a move in the direction as far as keeping in the spirit of the campaign suggestion and the campaign planning that was brought to us. So I'm not sure how to go with this because we have...
Your Worship?
Deputy Mayor Cox.
Can I just ask a different question related to this?
Yes.
I want to know a little bit if anybody has looked into liability. If we do a campaign for vaccinations, and let's say 2 years from now, somebody comes back and says, I can't have children because town of Strathmore made me get a vaccine so that I could win naming of a pond, are we liable in any way?
Mr. Legore?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, there's no liability here on behalf of the town. This is strictly a campaign to promote vaccinations. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor Bauer. I'll hang on to what you're saying, Councillor Montgomery. We may have to do that as well. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I really struggle with this on a number of different levels, simply because I think that having a campaign called the Strathmore Vaccination Campaign is exclusive. And I always want our community to be very inclusive. And so because of the fact that there are members of our community who, for their own reasons, have decided not to have a vaccination, I just don't know how us taking tax dollars, essentially money from the people of our community, to reward only some members of our community is an effective use of our tax dollars. I would feel much more comfortable if this campaign was a COVID recovery campaign. And if we were to give back to the community, if we were to entice others to think of creative ways to give back, to submit stories of how they have impacted others in a positive way, it could be more of an inclusive, including everyone. And I'm very happy that Councillor Corbeil brought up the plaque, because I was very concerned with choosing a member of the community that got vaccinated versus memorializing all of the people who have suffered and who have died. And so I would definitely support that being a part of this program. And in light of the fact that our administration came up with this idea prior to what the province did, in some ways, I almost think that it's redundant. And so I'm really struggling. And I don't think as it sits on paper right now, I can support this. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Sobel, then I'll come back to Councillor Montgomery again.
I'll be very quick, Your Worship. The fact of the matter is we are here to decide as to whether or not we will approve a Strathmore vaccination campaign for summer of 2021. And every councillor on this, all 7 of us, have the ability to vote yes or no when the question is asked. And I hope the question is asked soon if we can ever deal with the other issue of whether this is out of order or not. But I just feel we're off. Nothing is stopping any councillor from bringing a motion to have any kind of a program that they want administration to look at. But that's not what we're dealing with today. We're dealing with a Strathmore vaccination campaign. And once we do deal with Councillor Montgomery's objection to the ruling, I'd be happy to make a motion in that regard if it is indeed maintained as out of order. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I go on, I just want to go to Mr. Legore for help on this. I ruled Councillor Montgomery's motion out of order because it went against what was presented as far as the philosophy, the drive of the vaccination campaign. And he's feeling that my ruling of his motion being out of order should be challenged. So if that's the case, do we turn it to the deputy mayor to make a ruling?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, if he has challenged the decision of his chair, it's a vote of council. Who supports the mayor's decision, who does not support the mayor's decision.
Okay, so
If I could further add, Mr. Mayor, currently you have a lot of debate going on without a motion on the floor.
We do have a motion on the floor from Councillor Montgomery, but it goes against the spirit of the vaccine campaign.
That's correct. You've ruled it out of order, so it's not on the table until they vote on the challenge to your decision.
So we should have a challenge, a vote on my, okay, so.
Your Worship.
Councillor
Your
Montgomery.
Worship.
Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to and I know this goes against our procedure bylaw, but I just want to point out that it's very, very common for motions to not follow along with the spirit of what administration has presented. We make motions contrary to what administration has presented all the time. But here we are. So as I said, I would like to challenge the ruling that it is out of order, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a challenge to my ruling that Councillor Montgomery was out of order. So I'll call the question. If you agree that my challenging was out of order, then you'll vote in favor of his challenge. So I'll call the motion. All in favor of Councillor Montgomery's challenge?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? So the challenge to the out of order is defeated. So Matt, that means that that motion is removed. So then again, just in case anyone is confused, if you're not in favor of all or parts of this motion that deal with the Strathmore vaccination campaign, then that would affect the way you vote. So now, before we have any further discussion, we have a motion from Councillor Peterson.
Your Worship, I would move that Council approve a Strathmore vaccination campaign for summer 2021 and as proposed by administration, and that in addition to a pond naming, that the names of people lost in our community to COVID be placed on that plaque should their families be agreeable.
Thank you for that motion. Now we can have discussion on that new motion. Councillor Bauer?
Your Worship, I will wait until we vote on this motion.
So you want to speak after the vote? Okay. Councillor Sobel?
I apologize, Your Worship. I just didn't lower my hand.
Oh, thank you. Any other discussion on that new motion? Councillor Corbeil?
Sorry, so I'm just clarifying. This is only vaccination people, right? For the draws and for the pond?
I believe so, yes. Councillor Montgomery?
And if I understand Mr. Person correctly, the people that sign up to be part of this will have their names posted on our website.
So, CEO Lagore had mentioned that that's not something that we would do. So that is not part of this, like what we're currently presenting.
Okay, so this is just people can sign up if they've had one or more COVID vaccination shots to be entered into this draw.
I believe that's correct. Any other discussion on this motion? Then I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion on the floor? And opposed?
Nay.
And the motion is defeated. Thank you for all your work, Jeff, and it's much appreciated. Councillor Bauer,
Your Worship,
you have comments?
Your Worship, may I?
I think I have Councillor Bauer, and then I can go to you, Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Worship. I move that Council approve a COVID recovery campaign for summer of 2021, please.
What would the COVID campaign consist of?
Most of the things that I mentioned earlier, Your Worship. So incentivizing, bringing our dollars back into Strathmore. We could definitely, as a community, use that money, the $1,800 that Mr. Pearson said that they would use for prizes from our local businesses. We could have people submit stories and discuss how people have taken up opportunities to be kind and make a difference in this COVID time. I think that, there's a lot of stories that that are starting to come out now of how people are coping, and mental health is certainly at the forefront of this. And I think that if we can do something to celebrate what's happening in the community, as well as giving back to those business owners downtown and letting them know that we support local, I think that we can turn this around.
I think the only problem with your motion is that we have nothing concrete planned out or stated that we can all look at and see what is involved in a program. We just have comments that are being made. It's not, it might be a little more nebulous than what was presented to us.
Would it be okay to ask administration to go back and perhaps draft a COVID recovery campaign for us to look at next week at our next regular council meeting?
Would you like to put that in an administrative inquiry then?
Or a notice of motion.
Councillor Sobel?
This should be a notice of motion, should it not, Your Worship?
Well, I think it could be a notice of motion. It could also be an administrative inquiry as far as having something brought to us. I'll turn to Mr. Legore for advice.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Bauer should be referring the matter to administration to develop a COVID recovery program, and then leave it to Mr. Pearson to develop something and bring it back to council for approval. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So you'll take care of that then, Councillor Bauer? You'll bring something forward in an administrative inquiry?
Is that what CEO Legore would prefer me to do, is make a motion or do an administrative inquiry?
Sorry, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, she can make the motion that direct administration to develop a COVID recovery program and bring the matter back to council for approval.
I think, just before I go to Jeff, the only thing that concerns me about this is this was initially a vaccination program to try to get Strathmore in line with Alberta's numbers, to try to get us to that 70% so that we can safely go into phase 3 within our town. And now we've defeated that, so we're not going to be having any incentives to try to get people to help us get to that 70% or greater. And now there's going to be a motion as far as a general COVID. So those of us who were really in favor of trying to get us to the 70% range and really help with getting to phase 3 may not be as willing to just switch away to a program that rewards. And I get that we want to reward people. A lot of people have gone through a lot of things. But it puts us in a difficult situation. But if you want to put a motion on the floor, and Jeff has a comment.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Just regarding a COVID recovery program, Council approved a strategy, like a COVID business recovery strategy, last June. That strategy, our new Economic Development Officer, Kristen Shima, used as a basis, and we've put together a program that's actually it's similar to this one in that we've used very minimal resources, but that are aimed at a really high return on investment. So there already is a COVID recovery program. We've already started rolling that out, and certainly if council wishes, we can have Kristen Shima come and do a presentation to council on what has been rolled out, what our plans are for the next steps, and at that point, if there are additional programs that council would like to see us incorporated in that, then that would definitely be helpful to the Economic Development Office.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bauer, hearing that from Jeff, that there's already a program in place and we could get a report from our economic officer, economic development officer, are you still wanting to have your motion stand, or?
Well, I have a couple things. First of all, Mr. Pearson's already did mention that we are quite in line with the province in terms of our vaccination. So I don't think that we're behind in any way, as you suggested. And then the second thing is that if this $1,800 could be directed towards economic recovery and perhaps that other program, then it could be rolled into that. What I'm suggesting as well is just making it very inclusive to not exclude people who are vaccinated or unvaccinated, but really to focus on what are people doing in the community to recover from this COVID experience that we've been in the last 16 months.
So are you seeing your motion as a separate thing to the already existing COVID recovery program that's going on? It's a separate entity?
From Mr. Person's remarks, I can certainly see that it would be included. And so what I would like to do is make my motion and see if administration would come back and let us know what's happening, perhaps do a report on where the money has gone so far, and then whether or not they need this additional $1,800 and whether or not it would be worthwhile to roll it into an additional funds to support local programs.
Deborah, are you able to read back Councillor Bauer's motion? Oh, Mr. Legore, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, administration will bring a report back to council on the current COVID recovery program that we have in place. We'll report out to council, and if you want to amend it, enhance it, whatever, that's your choice, and you can do so at that time. Thank you.
Okay. And Deborah, do you have Councillor Bauer's motion?
If Councillor Bauer wishes to proceed with her motion, if she can clarify what that motion would be. If council's already, administration is already going to come back with a report, perhaps Councillor Bauer may want to withdraw her motion.
Does that help, Councillor Bauer? Are you wanting to do a reword or maybe restate your motion so that we can hear it?
I move that administration develop a COVID recovery program and bring back ideas to council.
Your worship.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, so we can discuss that motion. Councillor Peters?
Well, I think there's a point of order, your worship. There's a point of order because administration has already said that exists. So if there were additions to this, it could be either brought up at the time the report was given, or it could be brought forward in an administrative inquiry.
Okay. This is a different one now again because the program already exists. Administration has agreed to bring back a report on what's been done and what is planned to do. So I'll rule that the motion is out of order, and then again, if I'm challenged, we can have a vote on that. Councillor Corbeil?
I have a quick question on that, though. When would we be able to have a date or approximate month when it would come back?
Administration, do you know when it might come back to us, or Jeff?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. We would bring this back to the very next meeting.
Okay, so that would be the July 7th meeting, I believe. Yeah, I think it's July 7th. Thank you, Mr. Simpson. You're always helpful to me. Okay, so I have ruled that motion out of order, and the report will come to us on July 7th, and we can go from there. Jeff, once again, thank you for all your work on the vaccination campaign. We appreciate everything that you've done on it, you and your staff. That brings us to 9.5, Municipal Reserve Disposition 187. Megan, are you here on this one again? This is just coming from the public hearing, correct? Yes. So welcome back.
Good evening again, Your Worship and members of council. Just to reiterate, this municipal reserve disposal, as you can see on the screen, is for Block 8 MR Plan 9411772, just to dispose of 0.378 hectares or 0.93 acres of municipal reserve from this parcel in order to consolidate the two subdivisions that are conditionally approved.
Thank you, Megan. Are there any questions for Megan on her second guest appearance tonight? Councillor Sobel?
No questions, Your Worship. I have a motion.
Thank you. Hit me.
I'm sorry, ready with the motion?
Yes.
I move that council direct administration to apply to the Land Titles Office to dispose of 0.378 hectares or 0.93 acres of municipal reserve from Block 8 MR Plan 9411772.
Thank you for that motion. Now, we have a motion on the floor. So is there further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, hearing none, feeling none, all in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you very much, Megan. That brings us to 9.6, the South Kinsman parking lot, and we have Mr. Ethan Wilson joining us. Welcome, Ethan, and thanks again, Megan.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. I'm bringing forward tonight a new capital project for the South Kinsman parking lot. Back in 2019, the Kinsman Park Master Plan was completed by Carson McCullough, and that showed improvements to this southern area of the park. Improvements specific to this area included a paved parking lot with 36 stalls, an extensive concrete sidewalk, and a large quantity of trees and shrubs. Estimates for this work at that time was an exceedance of $750,000. Using the concept provided in the master plan, administration was come up with a revised path forward. A simplified parking lot is being proposed. This project would still include 36 parking stalls, but would reduce the amount of concrete work significantly. Asphalt pathways and grass areas will allow for future implementation of the master plan when that time is desired. It is planned to phase this project over 2 years. This will help with available funding, but will also give the lot the ability to condition through a freeze-thaw cycle this coming winter before being topped with asphalt and concrete. The project will look incomplete through the winter, but will still be functional. The funding plan, we are looking for $200,000 to come out of the federal gas tax. We would anticipate spending about $65,000 in 2021 and follow that with $135,000 in 2022. So what are the benefits of this project? The project will provide a paved parking lot for the South Kinsman Park. This is in line with the Kinsman Park Master Plan. It allows for future concrete sidewalks and landscape to occur still when desired. The stage project allows for the work to start this year, and it also gives it that winter conditioning that I mentioned earlier. The schedule for this project would be to start the work relatively soon. We would anticipate about a 2-week shutdown of that parking lot to do the 2021 work. We would schedule that around any events or other planned uses of that parking lot. The completion of the project will then occur in the spring or summer of 2022, along with all of our other paving projects that are planned. Thank you for your time, and happy to answer any questions.
Just before I go to council for questions, I have one quick one, Ethan, and that is, have we approached Christ the Redeemer as far as any financial contribution from them since their students use that parking lot throughout the school year?
We have not at this time, Your Mayor.
Okay, is there any merit in that kind of a thing? Or I guess that would reduce the amount we might necessarily have to fund through the federal gas tax, but it may create some other situations. Mr. Simpson.
Thank you, Your Worship, and to council. I think that we would like them not to use the parking lot. We do have some problems there with the students in terms of littering and what have you. We have cameras there now, and so it has been a problem, a gathering area, and we'd prefer them not to be there. But I guess a simple answer to your question is no, we haven't approached the school for any funding.
Okay, I can see that that is definitely problematic. I mean, if they're using it and there's a lot of littering going on and loitering and other things, that is basically a town property, and it is a problem. So Well, I'll leave that in your capable hands, gentlemen. You guys are sharper than me. I have no idea which hand is up first, so I will go to Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. That was exactly my question. I wondered, we obviously can't charge for parking. The parking lot is located directly across from a high school where, a large majority of the students do end up parking there, and I don't think things will change. So I would like to see some type of partnership, or at least mutual agreement, or if we can talk to their administration and see if we can work something out. They have a lot of really respectful, responsible students at that school, and I think if we identified that there were problems, that I think that it could definitely be addressed. So that was kind of my thoughts on this topic, and I'm glad to see that we're getting it looked at and paved, because I think it's really going to make the spray park, and a lot of people when they arrive at the spray park come in bare feet or little flip flops, and walking through those rocks isn't kind on their little feetsies. So and then it'll keep the dust down too. So thank you, Ethan, for your report on this, and I look forward to seeing more changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Montgomery, then Corbeil, then Sobel.
Thank you very much. And thanks for this report, Ethan. One question I have, so on the 2021-22 phasing plan, it mentions haul and spread loan for this year. Where's that loan supposed to go?
Your Worship, through the chair. So the area of the parking lot, we would be removing more gravel than we would be replacing. So anything that is removed that is not being replaced with gravel, we would cover with loam for the winter. We would then clean it up again in the spring and sod it.
I see. And where's the stormwater intended to go for this parking lot?
Through the chair. So currently there is a catch basin on the northeast side of this parking lot. The intent would be to slope the parking lot in that direction, and likely have a curb cut to allow for stormwater flow.
Okay. And even so I've noticed, the heaving in that parking lot is pretty substantial. And you're planning on just removing just basically a foot of the subgrade, I believe. Are you you must be pretty confident, I guess, that'll kind of be deep enough, I guess, or do you think some of it might have to go a bit deeper than that?
So to clarify the process for you, so we will be removing approximately a foot. At that time, we'll then scarify approximately 6 inches. So a total of 18 inches of disturbance. We'll then recompact that, do a proof roll to confirm that we've got proper compaction. If for some reason we have failures at that time, we would then look to further excavate and go through different methods.
Okay. And how thick is the asphalt going to be in that parking lot?
Sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe we were planning on 3 inches.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Ethan.
Thank you. I have Councillor Corbeil, Sobel, and Cox next.
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you, Ethan, for your report. I know this is long overdue. It's always a mess in there. I do just have 2 quick concerns. So we're going to shut this down during the summer, correct, to start for 2 weeks?
Your Worship, through the chair, yes, the plan would be sometime summer or fall. We'll work around events and other planned uses.
It wasn't just events or whatever. It's the splash park parking, it is for the Reds ball diamond and stuff like that. So just be a little bit conscious of that, I guess, moving forward. And then, yes, I was also going to ask about the school. And I know that the junior high is kind of in the same situation, and I'm not going to any direction or whatever else. I was kind of wondering if we had the same problems at the junior high as we do over in that parking lot.
Your Worship, through the chair, I'm not aware of the same situations at the junior high, but we can consult with municipal enforcement.
maybe just to keep in mind if we ever do get with the JUPAs. That's all. Thank you very much.
Councillor Corbeil, if I could jump in, I think there was more of an issue when the high school was at the location of Crowther. Then you had the students driving and using that parking lot. But with the junior high, not very few kids are driving. So I think that's a slightly different situation.
I just know a lot of parents park there, like for when they pick up kids. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Gotcha. Councillor Sobel, then Councillor Cox. Sorry, Deputy Mayor Cox.
Thank you. Very quickly, my question is in regards to the quote given by Carson McCullough back in 19 and the price tag that went along with it. Just out of curiosity, are you aware of why they voted to go, or they suggested we go with extensive concrete sidewalks?
Your Worship, through the chair, I don't have a specific answer for you. When we look at their master plan, there is a significant amount of concrete shown through the entire park. So I'm sure that was just a continuation of that theme through this area.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think going the way we're going is the right way. So thank you.
Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. My questions are, well, first I'll make the comment. We do need to be careful. The parking lot is not just used by the school. It's used by all of the people that use the splash park who could be littering as well. It is used by the church. It is used by the Reds baseball diamonds. So, I mean, yes, I understand that the school does use it during the day, but they do have a parking lot available to them. So if you want to tell them they can't park there, then maybe, they can use the other parking lot. But my questions for you, Ethan, are in the master plan, were we not at some point planning on making the spray park larger as well? Were we not planning on doing some improvements to those washrooms that are down there? And I just want to know, if we pave this now, are we in the future going to have to rip it up to do any of those kind of improvements?
Your Worship, through the chair, the only thing that would change, if we build the parking lot as I'm proposing, the only thing that would be lost of any future upgrades would be the asphalt pathways. The parking lot, the curb and gutter would all be able to stay.
So we wouldn't need to destroy any of that parking lot if we wanted to improve the splash park or improve those washrooms and so on and so forth.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Wilson, when you put the loam on for the winter, would you close the parking lot then?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
When you put the cover on for the winter, would you close the parking lot at that time?
Your Worship, through the chair, no, to confirm, the intent is that it would basically be a gravel parking lot, just improved for this coming winter. Yeah. And then we would pave it in the next year.
My second question is related to a conversation that we had in 2019. We talked about to improve the purification system through the ponds. We talked about putting a swale on the east side of the ridge going into Pond 3. So as it comes out of Kinsman and goes into Pond 3, we talked about putting swales on that other side. Would there be any advantage in utilizing some of the foot of gravel that we're taking out of there to put a swale to add to a terrace swale on that side? I know that when we did the initial investigation into that, they said that it would be useful. I was just wondering if Mr. Wilson, if we'd had any thought around that.
Your Worship, I'll have to look into that discussion in that report. If there is a use for this gravel, absolutely we will.
It was Mr. Roycroft that had brought it forward to council in 2019, and I did see a drawing, but it was preliminary.
Okay,
sure.
Thank you.
But I appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Sobel.
I'm ready with a motion, Your Worship.
Yes, thank you.
I move that council authorize the reconstruction of the South Kinsman parking lot with a project budget of $200,000 funded through federal gas tax.
Thank you for the motion. And now that we have a motion, is there further discussion? I was very impressed. We had a lot of good questions in that last round, in that action round. So any discussion further on to that? Seeing none, oh, Councillor Montgomery.
I just have a question for administration. So I understand that this is coming from the federal gas tax, but we do have a policy we passed recently that asked for any unbudgeted capital projects to be priced, including the cost of borrowing. So I was just wondering why that wasn't the practice here, I guess.
Your Worship, through the chair, federal gas tax is not money that's borrowed.
Does that help, Councillor Montgomery?
Yeah, no, the idea wasn't that any projects that actually require borrowing would be priced with the cost of borrowing. It was any unbudgeted projects at all be priced with the cost of borrowing as well. So I guess, does the federal gas tax, how does that affect whether or not you include the cost of borrowing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't quite understand the question. There's no cost of borrowing to this project. It falls within the terms of the gas tax program, and the amount of this project, that's where it should be funded from. If you're suggesting that we review the entire capital budget, then that's a completely separate matter, and we'd have to bring the complete capital budget back to council for a review.
No, I believe that the purpose of the policy, or the way that I believe the policy was intended to any unbudgeted capital projects that are presented throughout the year that aren't included basically at budget time, they would have the cost of borrowing included, for the reason that in theory, we would have to borrow less money for other projects if we were using that same money for those projects.
But I think gas tax monies can only be used for certain capital things. So it may not necessarily affect any other capital projects. So with this 200,000 funded through federal gas tax, that would take care of the whole project without any borrowing. And because the federal gas tax only supports certain types of capital projects, it would be, I don't know how to word it. It would be okay. It would be, I don't think we would affect other capital projects because we can only do certain things with the federal gas tax monies. Mr. Simpson, are you thinking of jumping in?
Well, I agree with what you're saying. I don't, the gas tax, we can use it, like you said, for certain projects. And any projects, that doesn't mean we're going to add more projects down the road. In 2022, we only have so many dollars to work with the gas tax. So I'm not sure why we'd want to include cost of borrowing in this.
If I could. The intent of that policy was so that when council is considering projects that are unbudgeted, we would, let's say, be a bit more, we would give it more consideration if the cost of borrowing was included, even though we're not borrowing, simply because there are projects that we do borrow for throughout there's projects that we are borrowing for. And, the idea is if we were not borrowing that as much, we wouldn't have to pay the cost of borrowing on that. So I guess my question for administration would be, do we have any projects this year that would qualify to fall under the gas tax that we are borrowing for?
Ethan?
Your Worship, through the chair. So all of our projects which currently can be funded through federal gas tax are. This is federal gas tax money which was not allocated to any other projects, and as such, the cost of borrowing would be $0.
Sorry, I didn't hear that, Ethan. Could you repeat that, please?
Yes, Your Worship. So all of the capital projects that are currently approved have funding sources allocated, those of which could be funded through federal gas tax are funded through federal gas tax. This is surplus federal gas tax funds that are unallocated, and we are asking to spend those on this project.
I see. Okay. Thank you very much, Ethan.
Thank you. Mr. Legore, you don't want to.
Nothing to add, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Sobel, Councillor Sobel?
Yes.
Oh, your hand is up. Did you have a
Oh,
comment?
sorry.
Okay, so I believe we have a motion on the floor. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion on the floor? And the motion is carried. Thank you, and thank you, Ethan. 9.7, membership in the Calgary Metropolitan Region Board. Mr. Jim Simpson.
Mr. Mayor, if I could kick this off.
Sure.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I had a discussion on this item with the CEO of Calgary Metropolitan Region, and there is some differences of opinions on our cons. I don't want to get into a debate on the pros and cons with the CMRB regarding our membership. Certainly, there's no definitive answer to those. What we're suggesting is based on both my experience in dealing with regional planning boards and Mr. Simpson's regional planning board's experience. And Mr. Simpson will speak to that, and if council has any questions specific to the letter from the Capital Region Board or the Calgary Metropolitan Region Board, I'm more than prepared to answer them, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Legore. Mr. Simpson?
Thank you, Your Worship, and to council. CA Legore stole half of my presentation already. I will repeat myself anyhow, because I have prepared a bit of a comments stating our positions and where we stand. Town administration is not here tonight to debate the pros and cons with the CMRB administration. We do believe that there are some cons that cannot be absolutely proven or guaranteed one way or the other. However, one of the cons is for sure, and that is that the population of the town of Strathmore is less than 1% of the total population of the CMRB. What happens in the town of Strathmore has little or no impact on the Calgary Metro region, but the policies and guidelines that are included in the CMRB growth plan will have a negative impact on the growth of Strathmore. We want Strathmore to have the flexibility to grow the way that council, developers, and the citizens would want. The list of cons in your package tonight was developed and agreed to not only by myself or by me and CA Legore, but by several staff members that have been involved in the various administration committees. And in fact, I have 3 of them here tonight. All of them were involved in administration committees with the CMRB developing the growth plan. We can discuss the options on obtaining an intermunicipal collaboration framework. I want to focus a little bit on this, which example is a cost-sharing agreement with our neighbors. If 2 adjacent municipalities are members of the CMRB, then there is no ability under the MGA to take the other municipality to binding arbitration under the MGA. The only recourse is if the Minister of Municipal Affairs steps in and decides for the municipalities. This will be dependent on the minister of the day. And we know over the years, different ministers are prepared to do different things. I do know that, Your Worship, you've received a letter from the minister saying he wants to see Wheatland Strathmore develop some sort of a cost-sharing agreement by the end of August. If he should take another portfolio, we'd be at the mercy of possibly a different minister. However, if one or both are not members of the CMRB, then under provisions of the MGA, there is a process to take the other municipality to binding arbitration when negotiating an intermunicipal collaboration framework. Another area of concern that should be discussed in some detail is the commitment of valuable staff time sitting on various committees and or reviewing documents received from the CMRB. Currently, our planning staff has 10 interim regional evaluation framework applications. IREF is what it's referred to most of the time. If you hear the word IREF, it's regional evaluation framework applications to review and provide feedback. So that's when municipalities have statutory documents that they want to approve. We have to send them to the CMRB to go through the process of approving it. One of the processes is they send it out to all the municipalities to review and provide comments. So we have 10 of them on hand right now that we're looking at to provide comments. 2 of these applications have approximately 300 pages. There's 2 of these applications. One has 300 pages, the other one has 700 pages. The town currently has 2 staff members that are qualified to provide the feedback. And Mr. Proctor and Megan are the 2 that we would rely on that reviews all these documents. Also, and Mr. Legore and I know that, in the future, there will be many, many more hours of staff time committed to sitting on administrative committees and reviewing numerous documents to stay up to date with the happenings of the CMRB. They'll be looking at different types of services, whether it's transit, recreation, et cetera, et cetera. There will be many more services that will be looked at by the CMRB. And there's many other comments or cons that we have put in this report to council. But there is very much more work to be completed in the future. I will say that there was nothing in the final growth plan sent to the minister that would change the position of your administration in this recommendation. Your worship, council, thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have questions for Mr. Simpson? Councillor Montgomery.
I don't. I have a motion prepared, though.
Okay, thank you.
I'll move the council send a letter to the Minister of Municipal Affairs requesting that the town of Strathmore be removed immediately as a member of the Calgary Metropolitan Regional Board.
Thank you for that motion. And now that we have that motion on the floor, is there discussion on the motion? Councillor Sobel, did you want to speak to your motion, Councillor Montgomery?
I can wait. Thank you very much,
Okay,
Your Worship.
Councillor Sobel?
Thank you, Your Worship. So, as we all know, the town of Strathmore has invested heavily in the accomplishments of the Calgary Metropolitan Regional Board. We've, through the time we've been together, we've gained a better understanding and a better relationship with the other 9 regional members as a result of the board's existence. I fully appreciate that the growth plan, as designed and approved by the board, will add substantial work and dollar commitment on behalf of the town. The response from CMRB administration, however, does raise some questions and does provide additional information that is not yet established. By all accounts, a response from the minister regarding the question of whether we, as a community, can leave the CMRB will not be dealt with until after the October municipal election. It would have been my hope to adjourn this matter to July in order to allow council and administrations of both CMRB and town of Strathmore an opportunity to discuss the pros and cons of staying in the CMRB a little further. I appreciate that, and I respect, totally respect the decision and the beliefs of our administration, and they are most likely correct in their beliefs as to what we should do in this regard. However, I'm left with just a lack of assurance and certainty as to a number of issues that have been raised, and I really would like to have the full picture before I make a decision on whether to leave. So I won't be supporting this motion, but I certainly respect administration's bringing this forward and their beliefs in this matter. Thank you.
Is there any interest on behalf of council to hold off on a final vote until July? Or do you want to get this done as of this evening? Not sure how everybody feels. We do have a motion on the floor, so any comments from councillors as far as the potential vote tonight? Councillor Corbeil?
Thank you, Your Worship. You know, I know that we have had some fulsome conversations about this. Maybe we need more. I would like maybe more information from Bob on what points he would like to specifically go with. It's just too general for me to sway my decision to wait.
Okay, thank you. So I'm not seeing a lot of Councillor Peterson.
Your Worship, I support the motion, but I support it really reluctantly. And I see all kinds of good in the CMRB in terms of sustainability for our community looking down the road in terms of things like water management, particularly resource management, joint initiative. But the detriment to our community in terms of development is extraordinary. And there is no trade-off. And, you know, as Councillor Sobel has pointed out before, and Mr. Simpson and CAO Lagore, that those are provincial government decisions. So I guess if I had a question, Your Worship, it would be, if we withdraw from the CMRB, is there, and the provincial government comes up with a different model, is there a way back in? Do you think there would be a way back in? And I know that you saw lots of people leave in your experiences before. I guess I would be asking, does anyone ever come back?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Peterson, to my knowledge, none have come back, but I don't believe any of them wanted to come back either. No. I think they were quite satisfied with the decision to move or leave the, at that time, the Capital Region Board, which is now the Edmonton Metro Board.
Your Worship, if I just might continue, I guess my problem has always been that I've seen good come out of the CMRB, and I look at their long-term plans and I see opportunities for us in terms of some of the things that they're doing. But we are so different in terms of who we are, in terms of that large metropolitan body, and even with so many of the other communities that are involved, that I understand why it's disadvantaging us to be there. But if there was a trade-off, if the CMRB in the future, the provincial government was able to see that there was a trade-off, that communities like ours would have no advantage to being in there in terms of the development processes around land management, but we would have mutual benefit to be there because we carry some weight in terms of water and system management and experience, that it would be valuable for us to be there. So if at some point in time the provincial government ever saw fit to change the conditions around which membership happened in terms of partial membership or reasoned membership around the comprehensive identity of the given communities involved, I would be very much thinking about this differently. But as it is, Your Worship, I support the motion on the floor.
Thank you. Mr. Simpson, and then Councillor Montgomery.
Just to follow up on Councillor Peterson's comments, and in a discussion today I had with Ethan Wilson, and he reminded me, he said that we already are in a number of contracts with the City of Calgary for water, CSMI for stormwater drainage and what have you. We have a number of agreements and contracts already that will continue.
But they're inefficient.
Pardon me?
Well, in my never to be humble opinion, those aren't necessarily good for us either. You know, I think there's a better deal to be had. I understand that they're there, and I understand that we work and live within them. We also pay a great deal of money to be involved in them, and I do think that the current system puts us at risk. And that's why I'm in favor of CMRV, because I think that chances going forward on those particular conditions have a better outcome for us, you know, 30 years down the road, 50 years down the road, than the CSMI or water agreement that we have with Calgary. So that's why I would favor CMRV over that. But I am prepared to go the distance on the motion in front of us and think about how we can better negotiate the current agreements that we have going forward. But we are too small to do that effectively, and that's why I'd rather see it done in the context of the CMRV or some such entity. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Mr. Simpson?
I guess that I would agree with you to a certain extent. First, I want to say this, is I'm not opposed to metro boards. I very much supported it in the Edmonton region. And I, you know, if I was working for Airdrie or Cochrane or whatever, I'd be supporting it on their behalf too. What I tried to do, and working with our staff and Mr. Legora, is that we have to, you know, weigh the differences. Yes, there's pros to being a member. We recognize that. We just feel, and I think this is where you're coming from, that right now the cons does outweigh the pros. And that's where we came up with our position. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Montgomery now.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just, I guess, just echo what Mr. Simpson was saying. There are certainly, you know, benefits to being in the CMRB. You know, there's you know, good discussions that go on there. There's, you know, a lot of good researching that goes on there. But I guess, you know, the good thing is that you know, it's a public organization, and we can have access. We can access, you know, all of the materials that they produce. You know, we can you know, we can review their research. We can see what they're coming up with, what they figure out as best practice, without actually, you know, having to pay the cost of being a member. And yeah, at this point, you know, and I think I can appreciate where Councillor Peterson is coming from. You know, there is obviously some benefit to, you know, having, let's say, you know, the strength in numbers, let's say. I don't think that, I don't think we would be realizing the value for the cost that we would have to outlay if we were in this for any length of time. And for that reason, that's why I support this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I haven't said anything yet, but I've been in the CMRB and at the meetings now for 4 years, and I haven't worked against them, and I haven't been negative. I've been trying to work with them to get the plan done and sent off to Edmonton. But there have been so many discussions and so much planning that really have no impact on Strathmore, and so there's often times I sit there and you just feel like you're not really a part of things, because there's not as much applicable to the town of Strathmore when you're this far from Calgary. You know, even regional transit is not going to be coming for many, many years, and there's been so many meetings on the north-south corridor and the south corridor, and then the floodplain and the flood mitigation in the High River Okotoks area, especially High River area. There's just been so many things that we're kind of bystanders to, and when I think of all the time that staff has to put into it, and the money that could be also being spent on staff time, but also if the province does start shifting the administrative costs of the board of the CMRB to the municipalities, it's going to add to our costs. So I'm also in favor of the motion. It's a heavy heart that I do it, because I always like to think as far as being progressive and look at the big picture, but I just don't really feel our membership is that warranted. So that's just my input for the others who might be wondering what I'm thinking. So is there any further discussion on the motion by Councillor Montgomery? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion put forward by Councillor Montgomery?
Aye.
And opposed? And the motion is carried. Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Thank you to your staff for all the work they've done on this through the years too. And that takes us to item 10, committee reports. Reports from councillors from committees in which they sit. We have 2 sets of minutes, I believe you've seen, from the Wheatland Housing Management Body. Are there any other reports coming from councillors tonight? With seeing none, with that being in our information, in our agenda package, Deborah, do we need a motion to accept those? Okay, so we're looking for a motion. Councillor Corbeil?
I move we accept the reports for information.
Thank you very much. You've all heard the motion. Is there further discussion on that motion? Seeing, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
And the motion is carried. Items directly related to council, I don't believe we have anything there. 12 bylaws, 12.1 bylaw number 21-15, land use bylaw amendment, advertising benches, and I believe this is for first reading and then to go to public hearing. Mr. Chuck Proctor, welcome.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. I just have a very brief presentation for you tonight. I'll try to be under 1 minute. So this bylaw before you tonight talks about advertising benches. Advertising benches are benches with a sign primarily used by a business to advertise stuff. Currently, there aren't any regulations for advertising benches in Strathmore's land use bylaw. We can't enforce safety issues with existing benches or take requests for new benches. We're proposing a number of regulations for benches primarily for safety reasons. The regulations outlined in your report will help us comment on the following: number of benches in one specific area, maintenance of benches, accessibility of benches, safety of pedestrians, and the corner visibility triangle. There are lots of existing benches in Strathmore. Some have been approved under a previous bylaw, some have not been approved. We propose that unapproved benches need to comply with the regulations by January 1st, 2022, subject to a decision on the bylaw before you. And unapproved benches will require a development permit, much like a temporary sign, how we handle those. So just our recommendation tonight is that council give first reading to bylaw 2115, and that council schedule a public hearing for bylaw 2115 on July 21st, 2021. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Chuck. Are there questions for Chuck tonight? Councillor Bauer?
I have a motion, Your Worship,
Thank you.
that council give first reading to bylaw 21-15, land use bylaw amendment bylaw, advertising benches, and that council schedule a public hearing for bylaw number 21-15 on July 21st, 2021.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on that motion that's been put on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
And the motion is carried. Thank you, Chuck. That brings us to 12.2, bylaw 21-04, municipal solid waste services, page 231. And I believe Ethan is here with us. Welcome back.
Yes, Your Worship and Council, I bring back tonight bylaw 2104, municipal solid waste services. Comments from council were received, and thank you for those. Adjustments to the bylaw were made based upon those comments. I would like to make some clarifications before discussion, if possible. Some items which came up through those comments that I want to clarify is construction and demolition waste. This material is prohibited as it generally consists of recyclable material and is not considered typical household waste, which generally incurs additional costs of the landfill. So we're trying to avoid those additional costs. A question came up regarding animal carcasses. The intent of the clause is to align with the waste control regulations. We did add clarity within the bylaw that byproducts of food consumption is acceptable. There are some specific packaging requirements in terms of dust and glass. The reason of this is simply safety, both for the homeowner, but mainly for the personnel of our contractor. Garbage spills was another question. Generally, the responsibility lies with the homeowner to clean up a garbage spill. The reason is that generally the spill is because of the homeowner. If there is a circumstance where the contractor, the town's contractor, were to make a spill, we have that expectation with our contractor that they are to clean it up immediately. In the off chance that that does not happen, it would lie with the homeowner to contact the town to make sure that that does happen. And then lastly, there was a question about offense number 34, and what I want to clarify is that the $750 fine will be imposed on any person who places their garbage in another person's premise or collection point. This is essentially littering, and the reason for the fine being $750 is that it's in alignment with our littering fine in that bylaw. So that's the clarification I wanted to provide there. So if there's any further questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ethan. Councillor Montgomery.
You're on mute.
I think you're, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably better anyways. Thanks a lot, Ethan. I really appreciate all your work on this, and I appreciate you taking the time to address my comments. The reason why I wanted to sorry, could you clarify about the construction garbage? So you're saying that, sorry, go ahead, why we don't want construction garbage?
Your Worship, through the Chair, Councillor, there's two reasons. One is it's generally recycled material, so we'd like to encourage it not to go to landfill. The second one, though, is it generally incurs additional charges at the landfill, so we're trying to avoid those additional charges.
Okay. And so the issue for me with like the construction garbage and then also the car parts is just like they're so like it's so broad of a category, you know, like, and I'll just kind of reach across my desk here. You know, I have this roll of painter's tape. You know, if I throw that in, that's construction garbage, you know, and you know, it's like, why would we not let somebody throw a roll of tape in the garbage, you know? Or, you know, car parts, you know, somebody switches out like their windshield wipers, you know, it's like, why can't they just throw those in the garbage? So I can totally understand the idea of saying, you know, okay, like, you know, shingles, you know, shouldn't go in the garbage, or, you know, drywall, for instance, because that is recyclable. But there's a lot of, you know, quote unquote, you know, construction garbage that, you know, isn't recyclable. And so I was hoping that maybe we could, you know, refine the categories a bit more so that we're not kind of, you know, I understand there's no fine, you know, for somebody throwing out, you know, something that might fall under construction garbage, you know, like a roll of tape or something like that. But I hate the idea of turning people into almost like kind of casual criminals kind of thing, because, you know, they either unknowingly or you know, they kind of, you know, violate one of these things, and there's really no harm in what they did, but they've unintentionally violated some part of the bylaw. So that's where those concerns were coming from. And so I guess I'm wondering, like, is there a way for us to maybe specify a bit more what we don't want to see versus just kind of broad categories that catch, you know, because anything inside a house basically, you know, is construction or renovation or demolition, you know, like you take a doorknob off, that's technically, you know, renovation or demolition, you know, and so it's, you know, and I understand we're probably not intending to catch stuff like that, but maybe, like, if we are, then that's, you know, appropriate. But if we're not, then maybe we should look at kind of revising that.
Your Worship, through the Chair, the intent of the bylaw is to be as catch-all as we can. We, of course, could put together a list of what is deemed construction materials, but then we run the risk of not including one item or two items or that sort of thing. The bylaw is open to interpretation on what is considered construction waste and what is considered residential household waste. I don't disagree with that, but if council wishes to have us further adjust that definition, more than happy to hear a motion. So,
okay. Like, I guess I'll make a motion that council directed administration to number 21-0 to amend the categories of construction waste and demolition waste, I guess, and renovation waste, as well as car parts, please. Yeah, so that'll be my motion. And I guess like I said, the intent maybe is just like if we could, because I know there are some things that are, like I said, recyclable. Like I said, drywall and other things where they're actually kind of separate, like, supposed to be separated to go to the dump. So I would, I would say that's probably appropriate to separate. Anyways, thank you.
Councillor Montgomery, we lost a whole bunch of those words in your motion. So
Perfect.
If you can get ready, I don't know if you have to, what you need to do, but Mr. Legore has a comment, and then if we can come back to you for a correction there.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you should give the bylaw a second reading and then present your amendments to the bylaw after you've completed second reading and prior to third reading.
Okay.
Okay. And
okay. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying we should have had discussion once second reading got put on the floor as well.
I can make a motion.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
So I guess I'll move second reading of bylaw number 21-04. Please. Thank you.
Thank you. And now that we have second reading on, is there any further discussion on that? Councillor Corbeil?
Thank you, Your Worship. I was hoping to simplify it or give a suggestion to simplify so we don't have to make the list. What if we did something such as not construction material deemed recyclable, and same with car parts? Like, I'm just trying to, make a little bit of a still a gray area for interpretation, but not have to list. I'm not sure if that would work or not, but just a suggestion.
Thank you. Ethan?
Your Worship, through the chair and Councillor Corbeil, I do appreciate that recommendation. I was coming up with thoughts on my own here. To avoid an extensive list, my suggestion would be that we add to the definition a size and weight. For example, anything over 1 foot in length and anything over, for example, 2 kilograms.
Thank you. And then a question to Mr. Legore again. Now that we have second reading, how do we add that then as an amendment?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, vote on second reading and then present each recommendation, and those recommendations will be dealt with individually, and then you proceed with third reading as amended. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we do have that motion on the floor for second reading then. And I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now, as far as amendments go, Councillor Montgomery?
Thank you. So I will move the council direct administration to amend the definition of construction, demolition, and renovation waste, as well as to modify what is acceptable for car parts.
So do we, Mr. Legore, do we need to spell out specific things that will be added to that bylaw?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. Your amendment needs to be specific as to what do you want the definition for construction materials changed to. If you want to direct it to go back to administration to come up with a different definition, then do so. But otherwise, you have to be specific as what you wanted to amend it to.
Thank you. So like I'm fine with my motion intending administration to come back with their ideas of what would be acceptable.
Mr. Legore.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the motion would be then to refer the bylaw back to administration for a different definition on the, I believe it was construction materials and automotive parts, if I heard correctly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is that amenable to you, Councillor Montgomery?
Yes, please.
Deborah, are you comfortable with the motion? Councillors, do you need to have the motion read back to you for any reason? Mr. Ethan Wilson.
Your Worship, before that motion gets voted on, is there anything else that would like to be amended that we can catch it all at once?
Councillor Montgomery?
No, those are the only things I thought of. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. Councillor Corbeil, did you want to speak to that too?
I would like to. We've had this matter in front of us a few times, and administration has worked really hard on it. I was fine with Ethan's suggestion, along with, you could even combine the two, if recyclable or per weight or whatever else. I would really like to see this go through so that it frees up administration time. Are you wanting a list, Councillor Montgomery?
No, I didn't want to, I guess, dare to, make specific suggestions myself. I was going to leave it up to Mr. Wilson, who's far more familiar with this than I am. But if if that can get turned into a motion, I'll accept that for sure.
Councillor Corbeil?
May I, Your Worship?
Yes.
Would it be possible to take a couple minutes or whatever for Ethan to come up with something just to pass this, take a couple minute break? Is that possible?
I guess I could check. Ethan, are you comfortable enough that you folks could deal with Councillor Montgomery's requests, or do you need time to get together? I don't want you to rush through something either.
Your Worship, my recommendation is what I would recommend anyways. If we are comfortable with a size and weight restriction, so anything under 30 centimeters or 1 foot in length and anything under 5 pounds or 2 kilograms in weight is acceptable, that's the direction I would propose.
So then, because I'm getting more and more confused as the evening rolls along, do we need that in a new motion then with the size and weight specified exactly? Yes. Okay. So then we do have a motion on the floor. So
Okay,
we would, are you willing to withdraw your motion and bring forward a new motion to amend, Councillor Montgomery?
Yes. Yes. Thank you very much. Yeah. So I'll withdraw that previous motion, and I will move that council direct administration to amend the bylaw to allow for construction, renovation, or demolition waste to be up to and car parts, I guess, to be up to, and I'm going to say 24 inches and up to 5 kilograms. Is that what Mr. Wilson said?
Your Worship, my recommendation was 2 kilograms or 5 pounds.
2 kilograms. Okay. Yeah. So I'll go 2 kilograms. And the reason that I'm going 24 inches is because windshield wipers, they're usually around 22 to 24 inches. So I figured might as well catch that in there.
Does that seem workable then to your staff?
Your Worship, I have no concerns and I understand the logic behind it. It still fits within our bin, so that's acceptable.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
So
you.
we have a new motion for third and final reading with those amendments. Correct? All right.
Just had a question, Your Worship. My question is only, so you're confident that we're not breaching any provincial regulation? Thank you.
So, Deborah, I just want to double check with you to make sure we do this precisely correctly. Is Councillor Montgomery's motion for third and final reading with those specific amendments then?
No, that's a separate
Okay.
motion that he has made.
Okay, so this is a separate motion. Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor concerning lengths and weights as far as what will be amended as part of the bylaw. All right, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And now a motion for third reading. Right, she's aye. So we need a motion for third and final reading of as amended. Councillor Corbeil.
I move that council give third and final reading to bylaw number 21-04 municipal solid waste services with the amendments.
Thank you very much. I don't believe there's any further discussion. I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
And the motion is carried. Thank you, Ethan. Thank you, councillors. Don't believe we have any urgent business, which brings us to item, oh, sorry, no, we're on 12.3. I almost skipped one. Prohibited business bylaw conversion therapy, page 265.
Mayor Fuel? Would we like to do a motion to extend the meeting before getting into this next item?
I would move to extend the meeting to 10:30, Your Worship.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor to extend the meeting to 10:30. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And welcome back, Jeff.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. The Government of Canada is hoping to extend the hours of parliamentary sittings through the end of day on June 23rd, when the House of Commons will rise for the summer. These extended hours are meant to allow sufficient time for the passage of some legislation, including Bill C6, which is the federal conversion therapy legislation. Once C6 passes in the House, it would proceed to the Senate, and we'll know if it has passed third reading by the 23rd. Whether or not the third reading succeeds, the final House debate for Bill C6 would greatly inform Council's own decision about our own prohibited business bylaw. Other municipalities, such as Calgary, have pointed out that these prohibited business bylaws have helped to apply pressure on the federal government to advance their own federal legislation. And so from this perspective, the community engagement and debate over the past year has been a success for this issue, and Strathmore has demonstrated considerable leadership in this area. From the perspective of creating the best possible bylaw, then the clarity that would come from the third reading of Bill C6 would be invaluable as well. So administration had committed to bringing this bylaw back to council for this meeting. It's now our suggestion that debate on this bylaw be postponed to the July 7th meeting.
Thank you, Jeff. Comments? Councillor Sobel.
Your Worship, just a motion that I would move that this item be postponed until the July 7th Town Council meeting.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor to postpone this to July 7th. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
And it's carried. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for all your work throughout this too, you and your staff. Councillor Bauer, oh, sorry, are you, sorry, I thought I saw you. Councillor Bauer, what's your vote? Sorry? You're opposed? Sorry, I can't hear you. You're on mute too.
I was opposing the motion, Your Worship, simply because I'm not able to attend the July 7th meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So that motion is carried. That brings us to item 13, no urgent business. Item 14, questions between councillors and council statements and or councillor statements. 14.1, Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship. I actually talked to our CEO, Lagore, in regards to this earlier today. It is about any kind of edited revisions or anything to our bylaw policies or procedures that are brought forward. I know I would appreciate if we saw an edited version so that we don't have to kind of reflect between our binders and what's in front of us in our package. And I think it would be a little bit more clear and transparent to the public as well. So he had mentioned to bring it up here. I can put it in an admitted inquiry or notice of motion or however we need to move forward on this. Thank you.
Mr. Lagore.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, in my discussion with Councillor Corbeil, she pointed out an error in our ways administratively, and when we do bring something forward to council for approval, we need to show clearly to you that any amendments that occurred in a policy or a bylaw or something, it's so clear to council what the changes have been made from the original document, and we will do that in the future going forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Lagore.
Thank you, much appreciated.
And thank you, Councillor Corbeil, for raising that. That's really good. Thank you very much. Is there anything else on that, Councillor Corbeil, before we? No? Okay. 14.2, Councillor Sobel.
Thank you, Your Worship. On May 19th, 2021, this council passed two motions as follows. Number one, move that council release the redacted report of Strategic Steps, Inc. to the public on the investigation of Councillor Peterson, and that the matter be considered closed once Councillor Peterson complies with Council's direction regarding a public apology. Number 2, move that the covenant as presented be adopted by Council and executed by all members of Council as of this date. The following information is submitted as facts. Councillor Peterson did issue her public apology in regards to the Strategic Steps Inc. investigation shortly after the first motion was passed. B, the covenant passed by Council was a reaffirmation by Council members that they must adhere to the Code of Conduct bylaw as established by Council. C, on May 21st, 2021, in a public Facebook post, which was focused on the Peterson investigation, Councillor Bauer commented, quote, "I'm saying your in a nutshell comment is not fully communicating the seriousness of the allegations. She was found in breach of many sections of the town's Code of Conduct bylaw, the Respectful Workplace Policy, and the Municipal Government Act. Her quote-unquote apology did not reflect the seriousness of the findings, nor did she seem to learn anything about the process. I suspect nothing will change. It will be up to Strathmore to decide if they want a leader like this in power in the next election." B, in addition to violating items 1, 2, and 6 of the newly mandated Council covenant, it's alleged that these comments also violate Section 6.3, 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3 of the Strathmore Bylaw number 19-08. Therefore, it is moved that Councillor Lorraine Bauer be sanctioned by Council pursuant to Section 15.4 of the Strathmore Bylaw number 19-18 for breaching Strathmore Bylaw number 19-08 in the Strathmore Town Council Covenant. And I'd like to speak to the motion, Your Worship.
Yes, and then once the motion, since the motion's on the floor, there'll be discussion afterwards.
So in speaking to this motion, I readily concede that this council, our administration, and most likely many of our residents are somewhat tired of listening to council members complaining about each other. Certainly, I take no joy or satisfaction in bringing this matter forward. I do not believe, however, that there was much choice in this. My desire in doing so is quite simple. There is a need for council members to respect and adhere to our regulations and laws. An aggravating factor with this incident is that council made a motion to enter into a covenant only 2 days earlier with the sole focus of working together in a more effective way towards good governance. It also called upon council members to treat one another with courtesy, dignity, and respect, and without abuse, bullying, or intimidation. As well, it called upon council members to refrain from using abusive or insulting words or expressions toward one another. And finally, it called upon council members to support the decision of council, regardless of the voting outcome on a particular matter. And that's all I have to say on this matter, Your Worship.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor, so discussion on this motion. Councillor Corbeil?
Thank you, Your Worship. With this motion, I knew at that meeting that Councillor Bauer was not happy with the apology, but we didn't. In our motion, that's all that Councillor Peterson was supposed to do. It wasn't, if you accept it, you accept it, and if you don't, you don't. So I really would, if people have issues with each other, I think that this is the proper platform to voice those concerns. I don't like that we do it on Facebook or social media. That being said, we actually don't have any policies or anything that, guide us either. So I think that is coming from our strategic steps motion that was passed to try and make things a little bit better. The covenant, it meant quite a bit to me, and I really hope. I don't know if it's too late or not. I just really want council to be mindful moving forward about our actions and about the things that we say and do in public. They do matter. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. Any other comments from councillors? Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to say that I don't support this motion. I will not sanction another member of council. I think that is part and parcel of what we are trying to do here. Each one of us has a voice and each one of us is entitled to use it.
So are you saying then that a councillor can criticize another councillor in public, on a public domain? That's the voice you can use to criticize?
No, I am not saying that you can criticize and do all of those. I am saying we each have a voice. And I'm sorry, but in all honesty, Councillor Sobel just criticized Councillor Bauer in a public meeting. So how is that different?
But he's brought forth a motion for us to deal with it. I mean, it's impossible to bring up a possible violation without any negativity to it.
Then my next question is how is this motion being brought forward without any, like, you can just bring forward a motion? Didn't think we could do that.
Well, we can turn to legislative or to administration. How is this being done as far as a motion brought forward?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if a councillor believes that another member of council has breached bylaw 1908 or the covenant, or both, they have the right to bring a motion forward to deal with that, either a sanction or pointing out that there has been a breach of those policies. And then council will vote on that. It's perfectly in order, Mr. Mayor.
Does that help Councillor Cox, Deputy Mayor?
Sure.
Cox? Any other comments?
Your Worship?
Councillor Peterson?
Your Worship, I'm just looking madly through my inbox, and I can't find the covenant. And so I guess I am asking administration, and Mr. Legore, or CAO Legore, can certainly refuse to answer this question, but would comments on a Facebook such as made by Councillor Bauer be in violation of the covenant accordingly? Because I'm listening to Councillor Corbeil saying we don't have anything that says it violated the covenant. Is that what you said, Councillor Corbeil? That it didn't violate the covenant? I'm not sure. And I don't have it in front of me, so I honestly don't know.
Through you, Mr.
May I respond to that? Oh, go ahead, Doug. Go ahead, Doug.
Mr. Legore?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, both the covenant and Bylaw 1908, which is the Council Code of Conduct, refer to this. So, and I have a copy of the covenant in front of me. I believe everybody has a copy if they want, but if anyone wants to look on here, it is here.
So it does constitute a violation? I'm just confused about what Councillor Corbeil said, Your Worship, and I don't have it in front of me. I don't know what I did with it.
Okay, well, maybe we can come back to you. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have a lot to say except the fact that I hadn't signed that covenant when I made those comments, and this is just another attempt at the continued bullying that this council has been facing since the beginning of my term, and this is no different. I don't know what to say. I mean, yeah, I said that. I was mad, and I'm not sorry for it. That's how I believe. I still believe the same thing. So, thank you.
The only thing I would add is that even though you hadn't signed the covenant, the code of conduct is in place anyway. We've all been a part of the code of conduct for the past 4 years. So just because Councillor Corbeil brought this covenant for us to start moving forward, it doesn't just wipe out the code of conduct that we're supposed to follow. So criticizing each other in a public domain like Facebook goes against the code of conduct, even if you hadn't signed the covenant. I think if we're ever going to move forward as a group, we just have to carry ourselves with professionalism And if I'm a teacher in a high school, I can't criticize another teacher in public. I can't criticize a teacher to a student or to another teacher. We have to carry ourselves with professionalism. So as far as the covenant not being signed, the code of conduct was in place anyway.
I have a question, Your Worship.
Councillor Peterson.
I just have a question to administration. When we voted on the covenant, does that mean that we all then agreed to the covenant? How does that work?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. When council voted on the covenant, that means that everyone's agreeing with the covenant. And the covenant is really a reaffirmation of the Code of Conduct, Bylaw 1908. And the only thing that I could say to council is you need to hold yourself to a higher standard than anyone else. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is there further discussion? Oh, I see Councillor Cox and then Deputy Mayor Cox and Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to, I agree with you. I do believe we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard and of professionalism. I agree with that. I also think, though, that once council's made a decision, all of council needs to stand behind that decision. So publicly, if we're speaking to anything that has been decided in council, we need to stand behind that as 100% as a council. We can't say, oh, so-and-so said no, they didn't agree with that, but it passed anyways, or it passed, but I didn't agree with it. We are a council as a whole, and we all have to stay in the same lane.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Corbeil.
Sorry, just last thing, Mayor, Your Worship, would it be possible to table this till the next council meeting? You know, it's quite a bit to think about. I would like to look at the sections brought forward and really think about this.
Well, I think that would come down to whether Councillor Sobel is amenable to withdrawing his motion or tabling it. Councillor Sobel?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear that. What was your comments, Your Worship?
Oh, I guess it would come down to whether you are willing to, you have a motion on the floor. And I don't know.
It's council's decision as to what we do with that motion. It's council's motion now.
Thank you. Councillor Bauer. Oh, sorry, you didn't want to say anything? Okay, thank you. All right, we have, Councillor Montgomery.
So I'm just wondering, so, when I went through the process of the investigation into Councillor Peterson's breaches, I was asked, what did I hope to come of this, why was I going through this? What did I hope the result would be? Essentially, why am I using council's time and resources, the town's resources to do this? I felt that it was very important, to go through that process, to go through a third-party investigation. I would have been happy to let council decide it because, we were all there for most of those incidences. So I guess I'm curious to know what Councillor Sobel hopes will come from this. What is he hoping the result will be?
Councillor Sobel?
Yeah, I knew at some point I'd be back in the spotlight with questions. I think it's very self-evident what I'm hoping to, and I think I made comment on it in my comments. This has to stop. We have to start following the rules as they exist in our bylaws and our covenant and our policies. That's exactly what I'm looking for. I'm disappointed that Councillor Bauer would say that she's not sorry for doing this, that she was mad and it's not going to change, because this doesn't accomplish anything if there's no change. Personally, I'd like to see this resolved with Councillor Bauer apologizing and not doing this again. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but once again, I don't make the decision here. This is a council motion now.
Any other
Okay.
comments? Oh, Councillor Montgomery.
Yeah, thank you.
And if I could just add, Councillor Montgomery, I have no intention of turning this into a third-party $15,000 investigation. I really want this dealt with by council one way or the other. Thank you.
I see.
Comments, Councillor Montgomery?
I guess so one of the things, for instance, our council code of conduct, it says that it recommends that if there's an issue between councillors, that the councillors reach out to each other and try to resolve this informally. For instance, when the rest of council had an ongoing issue with Councillor Peterson, I reached out to her several times in private to resolve it. I even had the mayor reach out to Councillor Peterson to ask her to apologize and prevent us from having to go through an investigation and spend that money. So what efforts have you made, Councillor Sobel, to ask Councillor Bauer to resolve this privately?
None.
And why was that?
Okay, listen, I'm not the bad guy here. You're starting to be fairly accusatory here. I've got a motion before council, and this was 2 days after a covenant was signed. 2 days. I did not think these circumstances warranted having a conversation about why this was done. And you know what, to be honest with you, Councillor Bauer is very well explained why that wouldn't have had any good, because she said that she wasn't sorry for doing it. So
okay, if there's Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. As much as it is painful to prolong this, and I know that it's been particularly difficult for you, but I want to say that I need to speak to Councillor Montgomery, saying that he came to me many times to ask me to apologize. And remember that there were 8 allegations. And after the strategic steps went through a very, very in-depth investigation where they spoke to many, many people, not just council, they came to a conclusion. And the conclusion determined that I had committed a minor breach, Your Worship. Not the allegations that Councillor Montgomery had brought, but a minor breach. The second thing that the strategic steps report said was that it had recommended a minimal penalty. And I understand that some council members were very averse to that. They did not like it. There are lots of things that happen in the course of a council that we don't like. And one of the beautiful things about democracy is that the debate is the debate and the vote is the vote, and there are many things that will happen in between that we don't like. One of the good things that happened in this investigation was that strategic steps created a path forward. They created a really sound path forward. And as you said, it may not be the magic bullet for this council, but it certainly, as Councillor Corbeil has pointed out, may have great purchase for future councils. But we have an opportunity to set an example of how to work together. And so those steps forward led to the covenant that I believe, I will refer to administration, but I believe it was voted in consensus. So there was a consensus vote that we would all do this, that we would all do this. So it's no longer a question of ideology. It's a matter of trying to follow our own rules and hold each other accountable, just as you held me accountable for using an inappropriate tone of voice and language. And God knows, I was happy to apologize for that. And I will also say that in my terms on council, there are several of us that could apologize for that, and me more than once. So maybe, Your Worship, when we stop as a council trying to chase the wrong things, maybe the good things will catch us. But if we don't start acting right, I don't know how we can ever do justice to what our community elected us to do. We don't have to like each other, but we have to work in the best interest of our community. And this is not acting in the best interest when we defame each other in public.
Thank you. Councillor Montgomery?
I mean, like, it's, I think we all know Councillor Peterson, we all know what happened, and we all know how things went down. And we know that not only was there breaches of the code of conduct, which, yes, you were found culpable for, but there was also breaches of the procedure bylaw that unfortunately we don't have a mechanism to translate breaches of the procedure bylaw over towards the code of conduct at this point.
Point of order.
So despite the fact that you did breach the procedure bylaw numerous times.
Councillor Montgomery, point of order, strategic steps, if that's the company name, I'm lost now. The company had formal recommendations, comments. The redacted report was made public. They referred to them as not major breaches, so minor breaches.
Yeah.
So for us to debate them now and say that they were more is not good.
If Your Worship, if somebody can
introduce,
saying that they were minor, then, and you know what, as everybody, I'm sure every resident in Strathmore, would agree, there is no place for inappropriate tone or inappropriate language in a professional setting, Councillor Peterson.
But the report.
That's all I have to say.
Okay, but the report stated its recommendations, it stated its findings, it interviewed everyone, it stipulated which sections she was responsible for, and she apologized according to what the report said. And that's what the public should be focused on. The report was made public, it was redacted for sensitivity reasons and things that could not be divulged. Sometimes there are in-camera information that can't be divulged. But she fulfilled the obligations of that report. Councillor Bauer.
I would just like to, end my comments with saying that, I think it's normal to feel emotion and, to feel like we have a voice with people. Taking someone's comments and just reading those comments without, any type of, Councillor Sobel has not talked about what was said before, what was said after. I mean, in my comments, I've just looked at them now. I do say that I stand by council's decision. And, if he would have just come to me and talked to me instead of blindsiding me tonight, I think that would have been much more appropriate. And we would have been able to have a conversation about this. And I would have been able to be prepared as Councillor Sobel and Councillor Peterson are for this type of discussion. But, it's very difficult when you're being kind of attacked like this to come up with an appropriate response. And I'll just leave it to council. I mean, I have had a very good reputation going into this, and I believe that we've all made our mistakes. Some of us have been made to apologize publicly, and some privately. And this is the first time that sanctions are being imposed on someone. And I believe that there are still other outstanding problems with this council that have come forward from community members, and I don't think this is the end. And so I would like to see some type of closure, and us to be able to just move on. So I don't understand the point of this, especially in light that we only have two and a half months of council meetings left. And I just think this is a very sad situation right now that we're in.
I think the point of it, though, is the fact that something was done against the code of conduct again. And there have been sanctions done to other councillors. There was one a year ago. Councillor Peterson also apologized based on the allegations brought forward to her. So to say that there haven't been sanctions is incorrect. There have been things done to other councillors. The problem is there's a code of conduct, and things were done against that code of conduct. And whether or not Councillor Sobel reached out to try to work it out in private is a different matter. But the fact of the matter is we have a code of conduct that we've been under for 4 years. There have been times that there have been criticism levied at all sorts of people on this council. And this is one that was done in a public domain. So I guess it is up to council now as to what we want to do. There's a motion on the floor. Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Worship. The last time that I'll speak. So, this isn't the first, this isn't the second, this is probably, I don't even want to count, actually, how many times that one councillor has criticized another in a public domain, whether that's a newspaper, whether that's Facebook, whether that's just in a conversation with people. This does need to stop. I do agree. If we have issues with each other, if we don't feel comfortable one-on-one, bring it to the council table. I can't enforce that enough. In a world where there's so much hatred and so much division and everything else, I would really like us to act like leaders and do the right thing. Like from now on forward, I don't know. I don't know background context. I don't know conversations before. I don't know conversations after. I don't even actually know these bylaws just sitting here. I don't know. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sobel.
Can we call the question, please, Your Worship?
Yes, we have a motion on the floor. Do we need to have it reread or read out? Deborah will read it out.
I can read it out, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Move that Councillor Bauer be sanctioned by council pursuant to section 15.4 of the Strathmore Bylaw number 19-18 for breaching Strathmore Bylaw 1908 and Strathmore Town Council Covenant.
Thank you. So we have that motion on the floor. I'll call the question. All in favor of that motion? Opposed?
Nay.
Wow. So I have a question then. Can we just go ahead and say what we want in public now about each other?
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. That brings us to administrative inquiries, number 15. Deborah?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have an administrative inquiry from Councillor Corbeil. Does the town have a procedure or policy in regards to handling formal written public complaints in regards to council? If not, can we please create one for the process for the administration to follow? Thank you.
Thank you. So at this point, we need a motion to go in camera.
I would so move, Your Worship.
We have a motion to go in camera at 9:51. All in favor?
Aye.
Councillor Montgomery, are you in favor? Or did we miss something?
Yeah, look, what
Oh.
section of FOIP is this?
Pardon me?
What section of FOIP is
No,
this?
we just have one item that I missed, and then I'm sure Mr. Legore will be able to tell you the precise FOIP number.
Thank you, Your Worship. Under 15.1 is an administrative inquiry response, and regarding current future plans for the Park Lane Drive, administration would like to maybe just have a brief discussion and try to get some feedback from council. We know that there's a few residents out there are hearing, stories which may be true, maybe not be true about the development of the ranch area, and in particular, a road that we're recommending be constructed. So Mr. Wilson, Mr. Proctor would like to have a bit of a brief discussion with council. Thank you.
Thank you. Chuck and Ethan, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. Simpson. We've prepared a detailed report included in your package as a response to this inquiry. Ethan Wilson and I would be happy to answer any questions. We just want to make sure that council has enough information regarding this question. We're happy to walk through it. I've got a 3-minute presentation if council wants, or we can jump right into questions, whatever council prefers. Thank you so much.
Questions, Councillor Corbeil? Sure, let's have the presentation.
So thank you, Your Worship. There's two, I guess, questions involved in this councillor inquiry. I'm going to answer the first question, and Ethan Wilson's going to answer the second question. I'll keep my presentation brief here. So the first question is, what does the town have on file for the undeveloped residential area south of Park Lane Drive as far as connecting to that area to a collector road? Will this area be connected to Park Lane Drive? So the undeveloped area south of Park Lane Drive is for the Ranch Phase 5, 5B, and 7. I've included a little map in your presentation, in your report there. So Anthem United is one of Strathmore's professional developers. The last homes in Ranch Rise, this is the cul-de-sac adjacent to Center Street, were completed last year, and Anthem United is interested in the next phase of development. Anthem United currently has zoning for these lands for Phase 5, 5B, and 7. Zoning was given in the early 2000s. It was amended in 2011 to R1N. The number of current and proposed future households in this area triggers the requirement for a secondary access. I do have on that map, there are 92 existing homes in Ranch Garden and Ranch Close. There will be an additional 133 houses proposed in the Ranch Phase 5, 5B, and 7, meaning approximately 225 households at the time of final build-out. And this area could be home to 585 residents, assuming 2.6 people per dwelling unit. If Ranch Gate were left as a cul-de-sac, it would pose a serious safety risk to our community. When we have 585 residents off of one access, things like a water line break, a gas leak, evacuation, a winter storm, and any other emergencies, could trigger, 600 people being left with only one way out. Although no decision has been made on the subdivision yet, town departments, my Department of Development Services, Ethan's Department of Infrastructure, and the Fire Department have met. We met starting last year in 2020 to discuss solutions to this problem. After considering different options, all town departments agree on requiring a second primary access from Ranch Gate connecting to Park Lane Drive. Town departments agree on Ranch Gate being a through road and connecting to Park Lane Drive, and we agree that this is the safest and best answer. I've included primary reasons for this requirement in your report, and also some secondary reasons. I'll just quickly summarize. We review several documents when we make a subdivision decision. There's municipal documents, provincial documents, national documents. One of the big ones is the National Fire Protection Association, the NFPA. This is a global organization that creates codes and guidelines for the purposes of eliminating death, injury, property, and economic loss due to fire, electrical, and other related hazards. There's a code in there that states that a residential area of over 100 households requires 2 accesses. And since in final build-out with the ranch, we'll have 225 total households at final build-out. So that exceeds the 100 household requirement there. Another standard that we refer to is the City of Calgary Fire Department access standards. They've got a number of rules regarding access. Again, they refer back to the number of houses. They also refer to the distance from the front door of a dwelling to a primary access. And there are some houses that are proposed to be in the final phases of the ranch that exceed 200 meters to an access point. So in that case, Calgary would require this second access as well. So I've mentioned the inclement weather stuff and the emergency response stuff. We're taking access very seriously in this department. Another important point too is that this ranch phase 5 is one of the last phases of development, and this may be our chance to get a through roadway. This may be one of our last chances to get this roadway. And then a secondary reason, just briefly, this roadway will provide better access to the soccer field and playground, which belong to all town residents. Park Lane Drive is a collector roadway, and it's a thoroughfare. It connects to downtown as well. So that concludes my answer to number 1, and Ethan Wilson can answer the second part of that question. Thank you, Your Worship.
Yes, Your Worship and Council. Number 2 just asks whether the Transportation Master Plan supports this. Our TMP focuses on the highways, arterials, the collectors, those sort of things, of which Park Lane Drive is a collector, and Archie Kleiber Trail, the alternative route, would be a service road. The capacity of a collector road is about 700 to 800 vehicles per hour. We don't anticipate that this additional access will exceed that. It will still be within normal capacities. We were asked on whether the secondary access could go directly to George Freeman Trail. TAC guidelines provide intersection spacings. The recommendation for a 50-kilometer-an-hour road is just over 400 meters. Currently, we have about 450, so if we were to add another one, we're now about half of what that regulation says. So I think if there's questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Questions from council?
I have one question, Your Worship.
Councillor Peterson, Councillor Bauer.
So we had a suggestion from a resident that I know that you got that talked about a right turn onto George Freeman Trail. Can you speak to that at all?
Your Worship, through the chair, the right in, right out is a reasonable suggestion. The concern that also exists with George Freeman Trail is right where this intersection should be located based on their community design, is right where we go from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. Where we go from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. So we now would be introducing an intersection in a location where we already have traffic adjustments. So the risk of collision or incident increases significantly.
Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Most of the comments that I've been hearing about this proposed roadway have been coming from residents who say that they were not notified or they didn't know prior to purchasing property in these locations that there was going to be a road through. Has there been anything, or was there ever anything on our websites or any type of development plan or something from the past that we can say that this was a potential roadway that has always been in place, and that we're just getting to the phase of development now that where we're implementing this? Or is it coming as a complete surprise? And if it is, are there ways to kind of work with these members of the community to kind of get some buy-in or some understanding?
Your Worship, through the chair, through some research that I've done on this development, the phase which created Park Lane Drive through Aspen Creek did show a road going south. Why that wasn't built at the time, I cannot comment. That was well before my time here. But at that time, you can tell there was some intention. Since then, the communications that have happened have not, there's been no communications about this matter until this subdivision application came in, which was approximately a month ago. So between then and now, no communication. Now is when the majority of the communication has occurred.
So are there positive outcomes from having a road, having road access next to you? Like, I'm trying to think of ways that we can work with those homeowners and say that, you know, the fire department can get to you closer, or that, like something in terms of snow removal or bus stops or something. Is there anything that we can think of in the future that will be an advantage to having this road there?
Thank you, Your Worship, and good question, Councillor Bauer. You know, we're going to try to do our best at the subdivision stage to mitigate, any possible mitigate anything that we can, whether that's through landscaping or positioning the road in such a way to, to help mitigate some of these concerns if we can. An upside of this roadway connection too is, it does improve, sidewalk and roadway access does improve to that soccer field and playground, which belongs to all residents. That would be a positive of this access. And knowing, I guess, that your neighbors to the south in Ranch Gate are safe and have adequate emergency access would be another benefit too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? Councillor Montgomery?
Yeah, so I just wanted to, I really appreciate all of your work on this. And as I really appreciate all your work on this. Well, Chuck, and as well, Ethan, I appreciate your work on this and all the other admin inquiries that I've submitted. I can see like you guys put a lot of thought and work into these. And, I really appreciate all of the information and time. Thank you.
Anything else from councillors? Seeing none, thank you, gentlemen, for your report and being willing to address those concerns and questions. And I believe now we're okay to go for a soda. I need a motion to go in camera. Seeing none, we'll sit
I would move to go
here.
in camera under 24.1A.
Thank you. We have a motion to go in camera under FOIP section 24A, you said? 1A. 1A. All in favor?
Aye.
Councillor Bauer? Are you in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And we're going in